Hi guys! Tonight we're travelling into a North America that feels both familiar and strangely distant. A world of winding rivers, endless forests, broad floodplains, and communities whose descendants still live among us, yet whose greatest cities vanished centuries before most people ever learned their names. Picture yourself standing beside a river at dawn. Mist drifts above the water. Birds call from the wetlands. The current slides quietly past fallen logs and sandy banks. There are no highways, no power lines, no distant engines, only the sounds of the natural world waking beneath a pale sky. This landscape will eventually support one of the most remarkable civilizations in the history of North America. Yet tonight, that story is only beginning. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you are settling in, feel free to share your location and local time in the comments. It is always fascinating to see where listeners are joining from as we travel together through history. Now, dim the lights. You find yourself moving backward through centuries. Long before the rise of the great mound cities, the rivers of eastern North America stretch across thousands of miles. The Mississippi River and its tributaries form one of the largest connected waterways on Earth. The land feels alive with possibility. Dense forests cover much of the eastern continent. Oak, hickory, walnut, and maple trees create immense green canopies. Deer move through the undergrowth. Black bears wander along wooded ridges. Fish crowd the rivers during seasonal migrations. For early communities, these waterways are more than sources of food. They are roads. A canoe gliding across a river can travel much farther and faster than a person walking through dense forest over generations. Rivers connect distant communities into growing networks of exchange. Your mind drifts across centuries of gradual change. The ancestors of the Mississippians do not suddenly appear. Their civilization emerges from thousands of years of adaptation, experimentation, and cultural development. Long before the first great mound rises above a floodplain, countless generations learn how to thrive within these landscapes. Families gather nuts in autumn forests. Hunters track deer through quiet woodlands. Fishers set traps along riverbanks. Children learn skills from parents and grandparents. Life follows seasonal rhythms. Spring brings planting and fishing. Summer brings growth and travel. Autumn offers harvests. Winter encourages storytelling beside fires. The smell of wood smoke drifts through the air. A pot simmers gently. Nearby, someone repairs a woven basket. These ordinary moments form the foundation of everything that follows. Modern archaeological evidence reveals that eastern North America supported complex societies long before the emergence of the Mississippian world. Researchers from institutions including Harvard University and the University of Chicago have emphasized that the development of large native societies was rooted in deep local traditions extending back thousands of years. Nothing appears overnight. Civilizations were Instead, countless small decisions accumulate across generations. One family chooses a favorable settlement site, another improves farming methods, a community develops stronger trade connections. Bit by bit, the future takes shape. As centuries pass, populations slowly increase. Villages become more permanent. Communities invest greater effort in building homes, storage facilities, and gathering places. The rivers continue to unite people across vast distances. You can almost hear the splash of paddles against dark water. Travelers carry stories from distant settlements. They exchange tools, decorative objects, and knowledge. Ideas move alongside goods. This process matters greatly. Civilizations are not built only from stone, earth, or wood. They are also built from shared ideas. The floodplains surrounding major rivers prove especially important. Seasonal flooding deposits rich layers of soil, crops grow well here, food becomes more predictable. Predictable food changes everything. When communities can produce surpluses, not everyone must spend every moment searching for food. Some individuals become specialized craftsmen. Others focus on leadership, ritual activities, or long-distance trade. The seeds of complexity begin to grow. For a moment, It feels as though you are standing in a village beside a river bend around 1,000 years before the height of the Mississippian era. Children laugh nearby. Dogs wander between houses. Women prepare meals using clay vessels. Men return carrying fish and game. Life appears simple, yet beneath the surface enormous transformations are already underway. One of the most important developments involves agriculture. Plants native to North America had long been cultivated in various regions. Communities grew crops such as squash and sunflower. These agricultural traditions provided valuable experience with planting, harvesting, and storage. Then another crop began changing the continent. Maize, originally domesticated much farther south. Maize gradually spread into eastern North America through networks of exchange and cultural interaction. The process took centuries. No dramatic moment announced its arrival. Instead, generation after generation experimented with this new plant. Some communities adopted it quickly. Others remained cautious. Eventually, maize proved capable of producing substantial harvests under favorable conditions. Its importance would become difficult to overstate. The future cities of the Mississippians would depend heavily upon it. As evening settles over the landscape, fires begin appearing across scattered villages. Smoke rises toward a sky filled with stars. You sit quietly beside one of those fires. The warmth feels comforting. The forest beyond remains dark and mysterious. People tell stories. Some explain the origins of the world. Others preserve memories of ancestors. Many are never written down, yet they shape entire cultures. This reminds us of an important truth. History is not only about rulers and monuments, it is also about families sharing meals, teaching traditions, and passing knowledge forward. Those quiet acts matter. They matter immensely. Modern scholars continue studying exactly how different regional cultures contributed to the eventual emergence of the Mississippian world. Historians still debate the relative influence of population growth, agricultural expansion, religious innovation, and environmental factors during these early centuries. No clear agreement survives on every detail. The past rarely provides perfect answers. What remains clear is that major changes were underway across eastern North America. Communities grew larger, networks expanded, agricultural knowledge spread, social structures evolved. The rivers carried more than water. They carried possibility. As darkness deepens, you look across the ancient landscape one final time. The great cities have not yet appeared. The towering mounds do not yet dominate the horizon. The immense ceremonial centers remain in the future. But their foundations are already being laid. Every planted field contributes something. Every trading journey adds another connection. Every generation leaves behind lessons for those who follow. The story of the Mississippians begins not with a sudden rise, but with countless lives unfolding beside rivers that never stop flowing. And somewhere ahead, beyond centuries of gradual change, the first great farming communities are preparing to transform North America forever. The rivers continue their patient journey southward, carrying drifting leaves, fallen branches, and the reflections of clouds across the broad landscapes of eastern North America. You remain beside these waterways as centuries pass. The forests are still vast, the wetlands still shimmer beneath morning sunlight. Yet something important is changing. Communities that once depended primarily upon hunting, gathering, and seasonal movement are becoming increasingly rooted to particular places. The transformation is gradual. Most people living through it probably do not notice how significant it will become. A family plants crops in a familiar field. Children help clear brush from fertile ground. Neighbors gather for harvest. One year follows another, then another. Generations pass. What feels ordinary to those living it eventually reshapes an entire civilization. You awaken in imagination beside a village located near a rich floodplain. The soil here feels dark and soft beneath bare feet. Moisture remains trapped within the earth even during warmer months. Nearby streams provide fresh water. Forests offer timber, game, nuts, and medicinal plants. It is a favorable place to live. The people know it. Their ancestors knew it as well. At sunrise, activity begins immediately. Thin wisps of smoke rise from cooking fires. Dogs wander between homes searching for scraps. Voices drift through the cool morning air. The smell of roasting maize reaches you. It is becoming an increasingly familiar scent. Maize cultivation has expanded across much of the region. What began as an introduced crop is now transforming daily life. Fields stretch farther than before, harvests become larger, storage facilities grow more important, food security improves, not perfectly, not everywhere, but enough to support larger populations. Research from institutions including Yale University and Stanford University has highlighted the central role maize agriculture played in supporting demographic growth throughout many Mississippian regions. Greater agricultural productivity allowed settlements to expand beyond sizes previously difficult to sustain. The effects ripple through society. More food means more people. More people require additional organization. Additional organization creates opportunities for leadership, cooperation, and specialization. A simple equation begins unfolding across centuries. As you walk through this village, you notice signs of increasing permanence. Homes are carefully constructed. Storage pits protect valuable harvests. Paths connect different sections of the settlement. Nothing appears temporary. People expect to remain here. That expectation changes how communities think about the future. Why invest effort into building strong structures if you plan to leave next season? Why create storage facilities if food will not remain nearby? Permanent settlements encourage a long-term planning. Long-term planning encourages social complexity. The process feeds itself. Your attention shifts toward the fields beyond the village. Men and women work together among rows of crops. Children help where they can. The labor is demanding. Farming always is. The sun grows warmer. Insects hum through the air. Sweat forms across tired faces. Yet there is purpose in the effort. Every harvest represents security. Every successful season strengthens the community. You notice something else as well. Not everyone spends their entire day producing food. Some individuals devote significant time to crafting tools. Others create pottery. Certain people become skilled at producing ornaments, ceremonial objects, or specialized equipment. This matters. A society becomes more complex when labor diversifies. The farmer depends upon the toolmaker. The toolmaker depends upon the farmer. Interdependence deepens. Communities become increasingly connected internally. The sounds of craftsmanship fill the afternoon. Stone strikes stone. Wood is shaped into useful forms. Clay vessels dry in the sunlight. The village feels busy but not hurried. Life moves according to natural rhythms. There are no clocks. No schedules posted on walls, only seasons, weather, and necessity. As evening approaches, family squaws gather once more. Meals are shared, stories are exchanged. Children listen carefully. Knowledge passes from one generation to another. Many lessons concern survival, others concern identity. Who are we? Where did our ancestors come from? What responsibilities do we owe one another? These questions appear in every civilization. The answers vary. The need for answers does not. For a moment, your mind drifts toward the larger landscape surrounding this community. Similar villages now exist across broad regions connected by rivers and trade routes. They are not isolated. Far from it. Travelers regularly move between settlements. Canoes transport goods along waterways. Relationships form across considerable distances. The rivers function almost like living highways. Copper from distant areas may reach communities hundreds of miles away. Decorative shells travel inland from coastal regions. Valuable stone circulates through extensive exchange networks. Objects move. Ideas move too. A new farming technique spreads. A ceremonial practice gains popularity. An artistic style appears in multiple regions. Connections strengthen. Modern archaeologists frequently emphasize that trade networks played a crucial role long before the rise of major Mississippian centers. Material evidence demonstrates interactions extending across remarkable distances. Exactly how extensive some of these networks became remains a topic of scholarly discussion. Some researchers argue certain regions were deeply integrated through regular exchange, while others suggest local communities retained greater independence than previously assumed. Historians still debate the scale and intensity of these early connections. The evidence continues to grow. The questions remain fascinating. As darkness settles across the village, a gentle breeze moves through nearby trees. Firelight flickers against wooden walls. Crickets begin their nightly chorus. The atmosphere feels peaceful, yet important social changes are quietly unfolding. Communities are becoming larger. Larger communities require leadership. Leadership creates new opportunities and new challenges. Who resolves disputes? Who organizes communal labor? Who speaks for the village during important gatherings? Answers vary from place to place. No single model dominates the entire region. Still, patterns begin emerging. Certain families gain influence. Respected individuals guide important decisions. Religious knowledge becomes increasingly valuable. Gradually, social differences become more visible. Not extreme, not yet, but noticeable. A few homes appear larger than others. Some individuals possess rarer goods. Certain people command greater respect. Complexity is growing. You sit beside another evening fire. The flames crackle softly. Someone adds fresh wood. Sparks drift upward toward the stars. The scene feels intimate and ordinary. Yet this ordinary moment belongs to a larger transformation. The villages scattered throughout these river valleys are laying foundations for something extraordinary. Future generations will inherit more than fields and houses. They will inherit networks, traditions, knowledge, agricultural system, leadership structures, shared beliefs. All of these elements will contribute to the emergence of powerful ceremonial centers and great mound-building societies, but those developments remain ahead. For now, the people of these farming communities continue living their daily lives. They plant, harvest, trade, celebrate, mourn, raise children. They adapt to changing circumstances. They prepare the ground for a future they cannot yet imagine. And as another season approaches, the fertile floodplains continue producing abundance, drawing more people toward the rivers that will soon become the beating heart of a civilization unlike anything North America has seen before. The fertile fields continue spreading across the river valleys, season after season, harvest after harvest. Communities grow larger and more confident in their ability to shape the landscape around them. What once felt like scattered villages now begins to resemble a connected world, linked by waterways, traditions, and shared ways of understanding life. You drift forward through time. The rivers still dominate the horizon. Morning fog still rises above quiet water. Birds still wheel across broad wetlands. Yet human presence feels stronger now. More homes stand along the riverbanks. More canoes move between settlements. More voices echo through the forests. And at the center of many communities, something new is beginning to emerge. Special places, places set apart, places where daily life and sacred life meet. You approach one such settlement as dawn colors the eastern sky. Smoke rises from dozens of homes clustered around an open central area. People move quietly through the cool air, preparing for another day. But your attention is drawn toward the center. The space feels different, intentional, meaningful. It is not a field, not a house, not a storage area. Instead, it serves as a gathering place where ceremonies, meetings, and communal events occur. Generations earlier, such spaces existed in simpler forms. Now they're becoming larger, more organized, and increasingly important. Communities are beginning to think beyond individual families. They are thinking collectively. That shift changes everything. The open area before you fills gradually as the morning progresses. Elders arrive first, families follow, children remain close to parents, visitors from nearby settlements appear along well-worn paths. The atmosphere is calm, respectful, expectant. You sense that this gathering matters, not because because of belief. Human societies often unite around shared stories and shared rituals. Long before governments become powerful, Ceremonies can create social bonds strong enough to connect hundreds or even thousands of people. The communities that will eventually become Mississippian are discovering this truth. Researchers from Princeton University and the University of California have noted that ceremonial spaces played a crucial role in building social cohesion among many early North American societies. Shared rituals helped strengthen community identity and foster cooperation across growing populations. The effect is profound. People who participate in the same ceremonies often begin viewing themselves as parts of something larger. A village becomes a community. A community becomes a network. A network begins evolving towards civilization. You sit quietly beneath the shade of a tree as activities unfold around the central space. A group prepares offerings. Others arrange objects used during ceremonies. Songs drift through the air. The sounds are gentle, steady, ancient. No written record survived to tell us exactly what many participants believed. Their voices do not reach us directly across the centuries. Yet archaeology offers clues. Symbols appear repeatedly on objects recovered from different regions. Certain patterns suggest shared spiritual concepts. Particular ceremonial practices seem to spread across wide areas. The details remain uncertain. The importance does not. Religion and community are becoming deeply intertwined. As afternoon sunlight warms the settlement, you notice another change taking shape. The gathering place itself is evolving. People invest labor into improving it. Earth is moved. Ground is leveled. Boundaries become more clearly defined. The transformation requires effort. Many hands contribute. Why dedicate so much labor to communal spaces? Because those spaces matter. They help organize society. They create opportunities for collective identity. They remind individuals that they belong to something larger than themselves. A breeze moves through nearby trees. Leaves rustle softly overhead. The scent of fresh earth lingers in the air. Workers carry baskets filled with soil. Children watch curiously from nearby. The scene feels modest compared to the great mound cities still waiting in the future. Yet this is where those monumental achievements begin. Not with kings, not with armies, with communities deciding to build together. That decision carries enormous consequences. As evening approaches, visitors prepare to return home. Canoes slide back into the river. Paths fill with travelers heading toward neighboring settlements. They carry more than goods. They carry experiences, stories, ideas, memories of ceremonies shared with others. These experiences strengthen regional connections. A person who attends a gathering in another community may return with new customs, new friendships, and new perspectives. The network grows stronger. Your mind drifts across generations. The central gathering spaces become increasingly important. Some settlements attract more visitors than others. Certain locations develop reputations as spiritual centers. People travel considerable distances to participate in important events. Seasonal gatherings draw crowds. Ceremonies mark planting seasons, harvests, and other significant moments. Life becomes organized around rhythms larger than any individual household. For many participants, these gatherings provide opportunities to meet future spouses, exchange goods, settle disputes, and reinforce alliances. Sacred and practical purposes blend together. They often do. Human communities rarely separate them completely. The smell of cooking food drifts across another gathering. Large meals accompany important events. Shared feasts strengthen social bonds. They also demonstrate the ability of communities to produce and distribute resources. Abundance becomes visible. Influence becomes visible too. Certain individuals appear repeatedly in leadership roles. Some organize ceremonies. Others coordinate communal projects. Respect accumulates around those who possess knowledge, experience, or spiritual authority. Leadership remains relatively fluid in many places, yet social distinctions are becoming easier to recognize. Historians continue debating exactly how early leadership structures evolved within emerging Mississippian societies. Some scholars emphasize religious authority as the primary driver. Others argue economic and demographic factors played equally important roles. No universal model explains every community. Regional variation almost certainly existed. Still, the broader trend is clear. Communities are becoming more organized, more interconnected, more capable of coordinating large-scale activities as twilight settles across the landscape. Torches illuminate the gathering area. Firelight dances across faces. Shadows move along the ground. People listen carefully as elders speak. Children grow sleepy. The air cools. Somewhere nearby, frogs begin calling from the wetlands. The moment feels peaceful, almost timeless. Yet profound changes are underway beneath the calm surface. The ceremonial centers emerging throughout these river valleys represent more than spiritual gathering places. They are laboratories of social development. They teach communities how to cooperate on larger scales. That lesson will prove invaluable in centuries ahead. Immense earthworks will rise above the floodplains. Massive construction projects will require extraordinary coordination. Great cities will attract thousands of residents. Those achievements are still distant, but the foundations are already visible. Every ceremony strengthens social bonds. Every gathering expands networks. Every communal project teaches valuable skills. The sacred centers growing across the landscape are quietly preparing North America for one of its most remarkable civilizations. And as another generation gathers beneath the stars, the first true seeds of Mississippian power continue taking root beside the ancient rivers. The gatherings continue. Season after season, communities come together beside rivers in cleared ceremonial spaces and across fertile floodplains. What began as modest centers of communal life gradually grows into something far more ambitious. People are no longer shaping only fields and villages. They are beginning to reshape the earth itself. You move forward through another stretch of centuries. The landscape remains beautiful. Forests still cover distant hills. Rivers still wind across the continent like shining ribbons. Yet certain places now stand apart from their surroundings. At first, you almost miss them. A low rise appears beyond a settlement. Then another. Then a larger one. These are not natural hills. Human hands built them. Basket by basket, load by load, year after year. The first mound builders are at work. You approach one construction site during the cool hours of early morning. Dew clings to the grass. Mist lingers above nearby wetlands. Workers arrive carrying woven baskets filled with soil. No machinery assists them. No draft animals pull heavy loads. Only human effort. The task appears immense, and yet it continues. Hundreds of people participate over time. Earth is gathered from designated areas and transported to carefully chosen locations. Layer after layer accumulates. Gradually, the mound rises higher. The process demands patience. Remarkable patience. A single basket contributes little by itself. Thousands of baskets change the landscape. You watch workers moving steadily across the construction area. Some dig soil, others carry baskets. Others shape the growing structure. Children observe from nearby. Elders offer guidance. The work becomes communal, almost ceremonial. Building projects like these accomplish more than their physical purpose. They unite communities through shared labor. They create visible symbols of collective achievement. Everyone can see the results. Everyone knows the effort required. Researchers from Columbia University and Oxford University have noted that monument construction often serves important social functions beyond architecture alone. Large communal projects strengthen cooperation, reinforce leadership, and express shared cultural values. The mounds before you embody all three. Their construction sends a message. We belong together. We can accomplish difficult things. We possess the ability to shape our world. The message resonates deeply. As the mound grows, people begin using it for various purposes. Ceremonies take place nearby. Important gatherings occur on elevated ground. Certain structures occupy prominent positions. Height matters across many cultures. Elevation carries symbolic significance. Higher places feel closer to spiritual forces, closer to the sky, and removed from ordinary daily life. The communities developing these earthworks may have viewed them through similar lenses. The exact meanings remain uncertain. The power of the symbolism is unmistakable. You climb partway up a newly completed mound. The view surprises you. From above, the settlement appears different. Homes spread across the landscape, fields stretch toward the horizon, river channels shimmer in sunlight. The mound changes perspective. Perhaps that's part of its purpose. A leader standing here can address a crowd. A ceremonial participant becomes visible to many observers. The elevated space creates distinction. It creates authority. Not everyone occupies the summit. That matters too. As afternoon sunlight warms the earth, activity continues throughout the settlement. Farmers work nearby fields, craftsmen shape tools and ornaments. Canoes arrive carrying visitors from neighbouring communities. The mound stands above it all, a landmark, a statement, a gathering place. Its presence alters how people experience the settlement. Visitors notice it immediately. Residents see it every day. Children grow up beneath its shadow. The structure becomes part of community identity. Your thoughts drift toward the countless hands responsible for its creation. Most names are lost. Their work remains. That is one of history's quiet mysteries. The builders disappear into time. The earthworks endure for a moment. You imagine the sensation of carrying basket after basket beneath a summer sun. Sweat dampens clothing, lake, dust clings to skin. Dust. The labour is exhausting. Yet people continue. Why? Partly because leaders encourage participation. Partly because communities value the project. Partly because the mound represents something larger than any individual worker. Human beings often accept difficult labour when it serves a meaningful purpose. The mound provides visible proof of progress. Each layer brings the goal closer. Each completed section inspires further effort. As years pass, some earthworks become increasingly sophisticated. Builders learn from previous projects. Construction techniques improve, designs become more ambitious. Settlements with immersive mounds attract attention. Prestige grows. Influence expands. Certain centres begin emerging as regional focal points. People travel considerable distances to visit them. Ceremonies draw participants from surrounding areas. Trade intensifies. Connection deepen. The mounds help make this possible. They create places capable of hosting larger gatherings and expressing greater authority. Historians still debate exactly how leadership evolved alongside mound construction. Some scholars emphasize the role of influential religious figures who organize communal labor through spiritual authority. Others suggest emerging political leaders played an equally important role in directing large projects. The evidence supports elements of both interpretations. No simple explanation captures the full complexity. Human societies rarely follow a single path. What remains clear is that monument building and social development are closely linked. Each reinforces the other. The smell of damp earth fills the air after an afternoon rain. Water darkens the sides of a newly completed mound. Workers pause beneath temporary shelters while distant thunder rolls across the horizon. Then the storm passes, sunlight returns. Construction resumes. The determination feels impressive. Generations inherit projects begun by their ancestors. Children who watch the work eventually become workers themselves. Knowledge passes forward. The mound becomes a bridge between generations. Past effort supports future achievement. As evening settles across the settlement, fires begin appearing below. Their glow reflects against the rising earthwork. The mound looks almost golden beneath the fading light. People gather nearby. Some share meals. Others discuss upcoming ceremonies. Children play until darkness deepens. The structure towers quietly above them, not enormous by future standards, but significant, very significant. The first mound builders are establishing traditions that will shape centuries of history. Their projects demonstrate organizational skill. Their communities display increasing complexity. Their ceremonial centers attract growing influence. Most importantly, they prove that large groups of people can coordinate ambitious undertakings. That lesson changes everything. Ahead lies a future of greater monuments, larger populations, and increasingly powerful centers. Entire landscapes will eventually be transformed through earth-moving projects beyond anything these early builders can imagine. Yet every great tradition begins somewhere. Here, beside the rivers of North America, under open skies and among fertile floodplains. The first mound builders are laying the foundations of a civilization whose greatest achievements are still waiting beyond the horizon. And in the distance, a settlement called Cahokia is preparing to rise. The mounds continue rising across the river valleys. Communities grow larger. Trade networks expand. Ceremonial traditions become more elaborate. For generations, these developments spread gradually across eastern North America. Then something extraordinary happens. One settlement begins growing far beyond the scale of anything that came before. You drift forward through time until the 11th century. The broad Mississippi floodplain stretches before you, beneath a pale morning sky. Wetlands shimmer in the distance. Rich agricultural fields cover the surrounding landscape. At first glance, the scene appears peaceful. Then you notice the sit. Not a village, not a ceremonial centre. A city. Its size feels startling. Thousands of people live here. Roads connect neighbourhoods. Public spaces host gatherings. Massive earthworks dominate the horizon. You've arrived at Cahokia. For centuries, this place will stand as the largest urban centre north of ancient Mexico. At its height, it may have contained a population rivaling or exceeding many contemporary European cities. The scale is difficult to comprehend. You approach along a well-travelled route. The closer you come, the more impressive the settlement becomes. Mounds rise above the landscape in every direction. Homes cluster across broad districts. Smoke drifts upward from countless hearths. The city seems alive, busy, confident, powerful. The sounds reach you first. Voices carry across open plazas. Dogs bark. Children laugh. Workers call to one another. The noise is constant but not overwhelming. It's the sound of thousands of lives unfolding together. You pause near the edge of a large plaza. The open space stretches before you like a carefully planned civic centre. People move across it throughout the day. Traders arrive carrying goods. Religious activities take place nearby. Leaders conduct important affairs. Everything suggests organisation. Everything suggests purpose. Modern archaeological research conducted by scholars from institutions including Washington University, Harvard University, and the University of California has emphasized the extraordinary scale of Cahokia. Evidence indicates it was the center of a vast regional system that influenced communities across much of eastern North America. The city did not emerge by accident. Its location offered major advantages. The Mississippi River and its tributaries connected distant regions. Fertile floodplains supported extensive agriculture. Trade routes converged nearby. Geography provided opportunity. Human effort transformed opportunity into achievement. You continue deeper into the city. The largest mound dominates the skyline. Today it is known as Monk's Mound. Even centuries later, it remains one of the largest earthworks ever constructed in North America. Standing before it feels humbling. Its broad base covers an immense area. Terraces rise upward in stages. A major structure occupies the summit. The mound appears almost like an artificial mountain, and every basket of soil used to create it was carried by human hands. The achievement becomes even more remarkable when you remember that no metal tools, wheeled vehicles, or draft animals participated in its construction. Only labour, planning, organisation, determination. You begin climbing one of the slopes. The ascent takes time. The earth beneath your feet feels firm and carefully shaped. Wind moves across the elevated surfaces as you gain height. The city spreads outward below. The view is breathtaking. Fields extend toward distant horizons. Neighbourhoods fill the surrounding landscape. Additional mounds appear in every direction. The settlement seems endless. For a moment, it feels impossible that such a place existed in North America centuries before European arrival. Yet it did, and thousands of people called it home. The summit offers another reminder of growing social complexity. Not everyone lived here. Elevated locations appear connected to leadership, ceremony, and authority. The distinctions within society have become increasingly visible. Some individuals possess greater influence than others. Some structures are larger. Some positions carry greater prestige. Hierarchy has become an important part of urban life. Exactly how Cahokia's leadership system operated remains a subject of scholarly debate. Historians still debate whether authority rested primarily with religious leaders, hereditary elites, political administrators, or combinations of all three. The evidence suggests complexity rather than simplicity. Large cities rarely function through a single source of power. As afternoon sunlight brightens the city, you descend toward residential districts. Homes constructed from wood and clay stand close together. Families move through narrow pathways. Daily life unfolds everywhere. A woman prepares food near a cooking fire. Children chase one another through an open space. An elderly man repairs a tool. Neighbors exchange news. The city may be impressive, but ordinary life remains at its heart. The smell of wood smoke mixes with cooking maize. Freshly worked earth scents the air. Somewhere nearby, drums sound during a gathering. The city engages all the senses. You pass through an area where craftsmen are at work. Skilled artisans produce pottery, stone tools, ornaments, and ceremonial objects. Their creations travel far beyond the city itself. Cahokia functions not only as a population centre, but also as a hub of production and exchange. Goods arrive from distant regions. Copper from the Great Lakes, marine shells from coastal areas, stone from specialised quarry sites. The city gathers resources from an astonishing geographic range. Trade helps fuel its growth. So does belief. Religious life appears deeply woven into the city's identity. Ceremonies attract participants from surrounding regions. Symbolic imagery appears on important objects. Sacred spaces occupy prominent positions within the urban landscape. For many visitors, Cahokia likely feels like more than a city. It feels like the centre of a world. The emotional impact must have been powerful. Imagine arriving after days of river travel. Forests suddenly open onto an immense settlement filled with towering mounds and bustling crowds. The sight alone would leave a lasting impression. As evening approaches, long shadows stretch across the plazas. Firelight begins appearing throughout the city. Thousands of small flames flicker against the growing darkness. The atmosphere changes. Daytime activity slows. Families gather. Meals are shared. Stories are told. Above everything rises Monk's Mound, silent and immense against the twilight sky. The city feels secure, permanent, almost eternal. Yet history teaches a familiar lesson. No city remains unchanged forever. Even at the height of its success, forces are already at work that will shape its future. Population pressures, environmental challenges, political transformations, social tensions. Most residents cannot see them clearly yet. Why would they? The city appears stronger than ever. Its influence extends across vast regions. Its monuments inspire awe. Its people prosper. Cahokia stands at the peak of Mississippian civilization. The greatest city North America has yet produced north of Mexico, and beneath the stars of the Mississippi Valley. Its remarkable story is only beginning. The city glows beneath the night sky. Thousands of cooking fires flicker across neighborhoods, spread around the great plazas and towering mounds. Smoke drifts upward into the darkness. The sounds of conversation gradually soften as families settle into evening routines. Cahokia rests, but it never truly sleeps, even in the quiet hours. Someone tends a fire. Someone watches over stored food. Someone arrives late from a journey along the rivers. Life continues in countless small ways. And tonight, your attention shifts away from the monumental mounds. You look instead toward the people who live beneath them, because a city is not earth and wood alone. A city is human lives. You walk through Cahokia just after sunrise. The first light spreads across the floodplain. Moisture clings to the grass. Birds call from nearby wetlands. The city awakens quickly. Smoke rises from hearths. Dogs wander through narrow pathways. Children emerge from homes rubbing sleep from their eyes. The smell of breakfast fills the cool morning air. Most meals begin with familiar ingredients. Maize remains central to daily life. Beans and squash supplement diets in many communities. Fish, deer, wild plants, nuts, and seasonal foods provide additional variety. The agricultural system supporting the city is remarkably productive. Without it, Cahokia could never exist. Thousands of residents depend upon steady food supplies. Fields surrounding the city stretch across broad areas of fertile land. Farmers work constantly to maintain those harvests. Their labour sustains everyone else. You follow a path leading away from the central plaza. Residential neighbourhoods spread outward in every direction. Homes vary somewhat in size and placement, reflecting differences in status and family needs. Most structures are built using locally available materials. Wooden posts create frames. Walls are covered with clay mixtures. Thatched roofs provide protection from weather. The homes feel practical, comfortable, well suited to their environment. Inside one dwelling, a family begins another ordinary day. A woman stirs food in a clay vessel. An elderly relative shares advice with younger family members. Children prepare for daily responsibilities. Nothing about the scene appears extraordinary, yet it represents the true foundation of the city. Family creates civilization. Monuments only reflect it. The warmth of the hearth fills the room. Wood smoke lingers faintly beneath the roof. Sunlight enters through openings in the walls. The atmosphere feels intimate, human. You can almost hear the quiet conversation. Outside, the city grows busier with each passing hour. Traders arrange goods for exchange. Craftsmen prepare tools and materials. Labourers move toward construction projects. Every person plays a role. Some roles carry prestige, others do not. All remain necessary. Research from Yale University and the University of Chicago has highlighted the specialized labor systems that supported major Mississippian centers. Large populations allowed certain individuals to devote significant time to crafts, administration, ritual activities, and trade rather than food production alone. Specialization creates opportunity. It also creates complexity. You arrive at an area where artisans are working. The sounds differ from those of residential neighborhoods. Stone strikes stone. Wood is shaped carefully. Clay vessels dry in neat rows. The craftsmanship is impressive. Potters create durable containers for storage and cooking. Toolmakers shape stone into useful implements. Skilled artists produce decorative objects carrying social and spiritual significance. Their work reflects both talent and training. Skills like these require years to master. Knowledge passes from one generation to another. Parents teach children. Masters guide apprentices. Traditions endure. Nearby, a trader examines goods recently brought from distant regions. Marine shells from the Gulf Coast gleam in the sunlight. Copper objects reflect warm colors. Exotic materials attract attention. The city connects far-reaching networks. People here may never visit distant coasts or northern lakes. Yet objects from those places arrive regularly. The wider world feels present, even within local markets. You pause beside a busy gathering area. Conversations flow around you. News travels quickly in cities. People discuss harvests, ceremonies, family matters, and recent arrivals. Human nature changes very little. Thousands of years separate us from these conversations. The concerns often sound familiar. Will the harvest be successful? How is a relative recovering from illness who recently arrived from another community? What celebrations are approaching? Life remains wonderfully ordinary. As midday approaches, sunlight brightens the city. Activity intensifies. The plazas fill with movement. Labor crews cross open spaces. Religious specialists prepare for ceremonies. Visitors arrive from neighboring settlements. The city feels energetic, confident, alive. Yet not everyone experiences urban life in the same way. Social distinctions have become increasingly visible. Some individuals occupy positions of authority. Certain families possess greater influence. Access to prestigious goods varies across society. Hierarchy exists. Its exact structure remains difficult to fully reconstruct. Historians still debate how rigid Cahokia's social system became. Some scholars argue powerful elites exercise substantial control over resources and labour. Others suggest local communities retained considerable autonomy within broader social networks. The evidence supports ongoing discussion. Ancient science rarely fit simple categories. The truth often lies somewhere between extremes. As afternoon drifts toward evening, you visit one of the city's larger public spaces. People gather for social and ceremonial activities. Children play nearby, musicians perform, traders continue their work. The atmosphere feels welcoming. Community matters here. Large cities can seem anonymous. Cahokia appears different. Neighborhoods create familiarity. Families maintain close relationships. Shared rituals strengthen social bonds. People know where they belong. That sense of belonging holds great value. A gentle breeze carries scents from cooking fires as evening meals begin. The city gradually slows. Workers return home. Families reunite. Stories and laughter drift through the cooling air. You sit quietly beside a household preparing supper. The meal itself is simple. The moment feels important. A parent shares advice. A child asks questions. An elder recalls events from years before. Knowledge flows across generations. It always has. These quiet interactions rarely appear in archaeological reports. They leave few traces behind, yet they shape communities just as surely as monuments do, perhaps more so. The great mounds dominate the skyline, but families sustain the city as darkness settles once again over Cahokia. Firelight flickers across thousands of homes. The immense earthwork stands silhouetted against the stars. Their presence feels reassuring, permanent, powerful, enduring. Yet beneath those monumental structures live ordinary people navigating ordinary lives. They work, love, argue, celebrate, worry, dream. They build a civilization not through grand gestures alone, but through countless daily acts repeated across generations. And while the mounds command attention from future historians, the true heartbeat of Cahokia lives within the homes, workshops, markets, and families that fill the spaces beneath them. The fires of Cahokia burn steadily through the night. Above the city, stars drift across the dark sky. Below them, thousands of people sleep, dream, and prepare for another day. The great mounds remain scenic, their broad silhouettes rising above homes, plazas, and pathways. Yet those towering earthworks represent more than engineering. They represent power. And as Cahokia reaches its height, power becomes increasingly important. You move forward into a world where leadership, belief, and authority are woven deeply into everyday life. The city has grown too large, too complex, and too influential to function through informal relationships alone. Organizations necessary. Coordination is necessary. Someone must guide the system. As dawn arrives, you stand near the base of Monk's Mound. The structure dominates the landscape. Its terraces rise toward the sky. From below, the summit seems distant and elevated above ordinary life. That impression is intentional. Height creates distinction. Distinction creates authority. The people moving through the plaza understand this instinctively. Not everyone stands upon the summit. Not everyone occupies positions of influence. The differences are visible. You watch as a gathering begins in the open space below. People arrive from multiple neighborhoods. Some carry offerings, others come simply to observe. Conversations remain respectful. There is an atmosphere of expectation. Something important is about to happen. The details of Mississippian political and religious life remain partially hidden from modern historians. No written record survived to explain exactly how leaders exercised authority or how religious ceremonies were understood by participants. Even so, archaeology provides important clues. Large public spaces suggest organized gatherings. Elite residences indicate social distinctions. Ceremonial objects reveal symbolic system. Together, they paint a picture of increasingly structured societies. Researchers from Princeton University and Oxford University have emphasized that many Mississippian centers appear to have combined political and religious authority in powerful ways. Leadership often seems connected not only to practical administration, but also to sacred responsibilities. The combination is significant. A leader who controls resources possesses influence. A leader associated with spiritual authority possesses something even more powerful: legitimacy. People are often more willing to cooperate when authority feels connected to larger beliefs. You notice how carefully public ceremonies are organized. Participants occupy designated areas. Certain individuals receive special attention. Ritual actions unfold according to established traditions. Nothing appears random. Every movement seems meaningful. The crowd watches closely. Children observe adults. Adults observe leaders. The ceremony reinforces social order. It reminds everyone where they belong. As sunlight climbs higher, your attention shifts toward the individuals who occupy prominent positions within the city. Their homes often stand apart from ordinary residences. Access to certain spaces appears restricted. Prestige is becoming visible in the architecture, visible in objects, visible in daily life. The process likely developed gradually over generations. Small differences accumulated. Influential families gained greater status. Successful leaders expanded their authority. Eventually, social hierarchy became part of the city's structure. Not everyone held equal power. Such arrangements appear throughout human history. The Mississippian world was no exception. You walk through an area containing finely crafted ceremonial objects. Copper ornaments gleam softly in the light. Decorative shells display intricate designs. Carefully shaped stone items reveal remarkable craftsmanship. Many of these objects carry symbolic importance. They communicate identity, status, belief. Possession of certain items likely conveyed messages understood by everyone within the community. The language is visual rather than written, yet it speaks clearly. Nearby, artisans continue their work. Their skill contributes directly to systems of authority. Prestige objects help reinforce leadership. Ceremonial equipment supports religious activities. Art and power often intersect. They do here as well. A warm breeze moves across the plaza. Dust rises briefly before settling again. The city remains active all around you. Yet beneath the movement lies a deeper reality. Large populations require coordination. Someone organizes labor for major construction projects. Someone oversees important ceremonies. Someone helps manage relationships between communities. Leadership becomes increasingly necessary as complexity grows. Historians still debate exactly how centralized Cahokia's political structure became. Some researchers envision a highly organized hierarchy capable of directing large populations across broad regions. Others suggest authority may have been more flexible, relying upon alliances, ritual influence, and local cooperation. The evidence leaves room for interpretation. Ancient power rarely fits modern categories. What seems clear is that influence existed at multiple levels. Religious leaders, community organizers, prominent families, skilled negotiators, all may have contributed to the city's governance. As afternoon approaches, you follow a procession moving toward a ceremonial area. Participants wear carefully prepared clothing. Decorative items catch the sunlight. The atmosphere feels solemn but not oppressive. The people gathered here believe these activities matter deeply. Religion provides more than spiritual comfort. It helps explain the world, why rivers flood, why crops grow, why seasons change, why communities prosper. Shared beliefs create shared understanding. Shared understanding creates stability. You pause beside a group listening attentively to respected elders. Stories pass from one generation to another. Some preserve historical memory. Others communicate moral lessons. Still others explain sacred relationships between people, animals, landscapes, and unseen forces. Knowledge carries palili. Those who possess important knowledge often gain influence. That pattern appears repeatedly throughout human history. The Mississippian world follows a similar path. As evening approaches, shadows lengthened across the city. The great mound cast an enormous silhouette over surrounding plazas. Its presence feels almost symbolic of the social system itself. Elevated, visible, commanding attention. Below, ordinary life continues. Farmers return from fields, craftsmen complete daily tasks, family doorways prepare evening meals. Most residents do not spend their days exercising authority. They spend their days living, yet the structures of power shape their experiences in countless subtle ways. They influence ceremonies, construction projects, distribution of resources, relationships between communities. Authority becomes part of the landscape, as natural as the rivers, as familiar as the seasons. The smell of cooking food drifts through the cooling air. Wood smoke rises from hundreds of hearths. Children chase one another through gathering spaces before parents call them home. Night returns gradually. The city softens. The crowds disperse. The ceremonies end, but the systems behind them remain. Power, belief, and leadership have become deeply rooted within Cahokia and the broader Mississippian world. They help hold together populations far larger than earlier generations could have imagined. For now, the arrangement appears successful. The city prospers. The mounds stand tall. The plazas remain full. Yet beyond the horizon, new connections are forming through trade routes stretching across the continent. And those connections will soon bind the Mississippian world into networks reaching farther than ever before. The great city continues to thrive. Each morning, sunlight spreads across the Mississippi floodplain and reveals a landscape filled with movement. Farmers leave for distant fields. Craftsmen begin their work. Ceremonial leaders prepare for important duties. Children weave through crowded pathways. And beyond the city itself, something equally remarkable is taking place. The rivers are carrying more than people. They are carrying a continent's worth of connections. You drift outward from Cahokia and follow the waterways that stretch in every direction. The Mississippi River flows southward through vast landscapes. Tributaries branch outward like veins through forests, plains, and valleys. These rivers link communities separated by hundreds of miles. Sometimes more. A canoe appears on the water ahead, then another, then several more. They glide quietly through the current, carrying travelers, traders, messages, and goods. Their journeys may take days or even weeks, yet they continue. The rewards make the effort worthwhile. You imagine sitting inside one of those canoes during an early morning journey. Mist hovers above the water. The paddle enters the river with a soft splash. Forested banks slide slowly past. The world feels immense and connected. Trade networks now extend across much of eastern North America. Communities exchange materials, ideas, artistic styles, and ceremonial traditions. Some goods travel astonishing distances before reaching their final destinations. The movement of these objects tells an important story. No civilization develops in isolation. The Mississippian world is no exception. Researchers from Harvard University and the University of California have emphasized that long-distance exchange networks played a major role in connecting diverse communities throughout eastern North America. Archaeological evidence reveals materials moving across enormous geographic areas. The scale remains impressive even today. You arrive at a busy trading area near Cahokia. Visitors from distant regions unload goods from canoes. Others prepare items for journeys in the opposite direction. The variety catches your attention immediately. Marine shells arrive from coastal waters far to the south. Copper appears from regions surrounding the Great Lakes. Specialized stone comes from distant quarry sites. Rare pigments travel across multiple river systems. Each object carries a story. Someone extracted it. Someone transported it. Someone exchanged it. Someone valued it enough to continue the journey. Trade is never only about objects. It is about relationships. As merchants and travelers interact, they exchange information alongside material goods. News spreads, stories travel, new ideas appear in places where they never existed before. A decorative style emerging in one region may eventually influence artists hundreds of miles away. A ceremonial practice adopted by one community may spread gradually through trade contacts. Innovation moves with people, always has. You pause beside a craftsman examining a collection of marine shells. Their smooth surfaces gleam in the sunlight. Such materials are valuable not because they are useful for survival, but because they are unusual. Rare objects often become symbols of status, prestige, connection. The shells demonstrate access to distant networks. That access matters. Within growing Mississippian societies, trade becomes one way leaders reinforce influence. The ability to acquire desirable goods enhances authority and strengthens relationships. The system benefits many participants, yet it also contributes to increasing social complexity. A warm breeze carries the scent of river water and damp wood. Canoes continue arriving throughout the afternoon. Some carry families, others transport specialized cargo, still others bring visitors attending ceremonies or festivals. The rivers never seem empty. They feel alive, like moving roads, like arteries feeding an enormous cultural landscape. As you travel farther from Cahokia, you begin noticing similarities between distant communities. Certain artistic motifs appear repeatedly. Similar ceremonial objects emerge in different regions. Shared themes connect places separated by considerable distances. This pattern fascinates archaeologists. It suggests cultural interaction on a large scale. Yet similarities do not mean uniformity. Each community remains unique. Local traditions continue shaping daily life. Regional identities remain strong. The Mississippian world is connected without becoming identical. Historians still debate exactly how influence flowed through these networks. As scholars argue, major centers like Cahokia actively shaped distant regions through cultural prestige and political influence. Others emphasize reciprocal relationships in which local communities adapted ideas according to their own needs and traditions. Both perspectives offer valuable insights. Human interaction rarely moves in only one direction. Influence tends to flow back and forth, like rivers themselves. As evening approaches, you arrive at another settlement hundreds of miles from Cahokia. The people here speak differently. Their local customs contain distinct features. Their environment differs from the Mississippi floodplain, yet certain connections remain visible. Trade goods link them to wider networks. Shared symbols appear in important places. Ceremonial traditions reveal overlapping influences. The broader Mississippian world reaches here too, not through conquest, not through permanent occupation, through relationships. The distinction matters. The civilization developing across eastern North America resembles a web more than an empire. Connections bind communities together, but local variation persists. The network remains flexible, dynamic, alive. You sit beside a riverside camp as darkness gathers. Travelers prepare meals before continuing their journeys. The smell of wood smoke drifts across the water. Canoes rest along muddy banks. Conversations unfold around nearby fires. People discuss weather conditions, river levels, recent ceremonies, news from distant settlements. Information travels slowly by modern standards, yet it travels remarkably well for the era. The river system helps make that possible. For a moment, you imagine the excitement of hearing stories from places you may never personally visit. Distant cities, unfamiliar landscapes. Customs. Trade broadens horizons. It encourages curiosity. It reminds people that the world extends far beyond local boundaries. The Mississippian world grows stronger through these connections. Goods increase prosperity. Ideas encourage innovation. Relationships reduce isolation. The benefits accumulate over generations. At the same time, the network becomes increasingly important to social and political life. Leaders build alliances. Ceremonial centers attract visitors. Prestige goods reinforce authority. Trade shapes power. Power shapes trade. The relationship deepens. Night settles fully over the river. Reflections of stins shimmer across the dark water. Somewhere downstream, another canoe continues its journey beneath the moonlight. Perhaps it carries shells, perhaps copper, perhaps news, perhaps ideas that will eventually influence communities hundreds of miles away. The rivers do not care what they carry, they simply connect, and through those connections, the Mississippian civilization expands beyond individual cities and settlements, becoming a vast cultural world tied together by waterways, exchange, and shared experience. Soon, those connections will intertwine even more closely with religion, symbolism, and sacred landscapes that give deeper meaning to the lives of the people who inhabit this remarkable civilization. The rivers continue flowing through the heart of the Mississippian world. They connect cities, villages, ceremonial centers, and distant communities. Canoes travel their currents. Trade goods move across their waters. Stories pass from settlement to settlement. Yet for the people living beside these rivers, the landscape is more than geography. It is sacred. Every hill, forest, river bend, and stretch of open sky carries meaning. The natural world is not separate from spiritual life. It is part of it. You drift through the early morning mist surrounding a ceremonial center. The air feels cool against your skin. Dew sparkles on grasses. Birds call from nearby wetlands. The world seems awake, alive, watching around you. People begin preparing for an important gathering. Fires are lit. Offerings are arranged. Families arrive from neighboring settlements. The atmosphere feels different from the ordinary daily life. More focused, more deliberate. This is a sacred day. The exact beliefs of the Mississippians remain partly hidden behind the passage of centuries. No written texts survive to explain their religious systems in detail. Their stories were carried through memory, ceremony, and oral tradition. Many of those voices are now silent, yet archaeology provides valuable. Symbols appear repeatedly across the Mississippian world. Artistic designs connect distant regions. Ceremonial objects reveal shared spiritual themes. Together, they suggest a rich and complex worldview. Researchers from Yale University and the University of Chicago have noted that religious symbolism appears deeply embedded within Mississippian society. Sacred imagery, ceremonial architecture, and ritual practices seem to have played central roles in community life. Religion was not confined to special occasions. It shaped daily existence. You walk toward a large open plaza where preparations continue. People move carefully around the space. Certain objects are handled with particular respect. Elders speak quietly with younger participants. Knowledge passes from one generation to the next, not through books, through experience, through participation, through memory. That process requires trust. It requires continuity. The survival of spiritual traditions depends upon people choosing to preserve them. The Mississippians clearly value that spacey responsibility. A gentle breeze moves across the gathering area. The smell of fresh earth mixes with wood smoke somewhere nearby. Drums begin sounding in slow rhythms. The effect feels powerful. Not because the sounds are loud, because they are shared. Hundreds of people respond together. Their attention focuses upon common symbols and common rituals. The experience strengthens social bonds. It reminds participants that they belong to a larger community. As the ceremony unfolds, your eyes are drawn toward the surrounding landscape. The placement of important structures appears intentional. Mounds rise above plazas. Open spaces align with significant locations. Nothing feels accidental. Sacred geography matters. Many ancient societies organized important places according to religious principles. The Mississippians seem to have done the same. Their ceremonial centers were not simply collections of buildings. They were carefully shaped spiritual landscapes. The sky itself may have played an important role. You imagine standing in a plaza before sunrise during a major seasonal event. The eastern horizon gradually brightens. Crowds gather silently. Everyone watches the same point in the distance. Then the sun appears. Its first light touches the landscape. The moment feels meaningful. Connections between celestial events and ceremonial activities appear in several Mississippian sites. Certain alignments suggest careful observation of seasonal cycles. Agricultural societies depend upon understanding those cycles. Religious traditions often incorporate them. The relationship feels natural. Historians still debate exactly how astronomical observations influence Mississippian ceremonies. Some scholars emphasize sophisticated planning and symbolic alignments. Others urge caution, noting the limits of available evidence. The discussion remains active. The fascination remains strong. You move through another sacred area where symbolic imagery decorates important objects. Birds appear frequently in certain artistic traditions. Powerful animals feature prominently as well. Human figures interact with supernatural forces. The imagery feels layered, complex, meaningful. People viewing these objects likely understood messages that modern observers can only partially reconstruct. Cultural knowledge provides context. Without that context, some meanings remain elusive. Yet even incomplete understanding reveals impressive sophistication. The artists creating these objects were not merely decorating surfaces. They were communicating ideas, deep ideas about identity, power, nature, and the spiritual world. The afternoon sun warms the plaza as ceremonies continue. Participants move according to established traditions. Spectators observe respectfully. The atmosphere remains calm but emotionally powerful. For many individuals, moments like these shape entire lives. Children remember them. Adults return year after year. Communities build selective memory through shared experiences. Religion becomes part of identity, not something separate from daily life, part of life itself. Nearby, families prepare food for communal meals. The smell of roasting fish and maize drifts through the air. Conversations flow easily. Laughter occasionally breaks the solemn atmosphere. Sacred gatherings often combine multiple purposes: spiritual, social, political, economic. The boundaries blur. People meet relatives, exchange goods, strengthen alliances, renew traditions. One event serves many functions. The genius of successful ceremonial systems often lies in that flexibility. As evening approaches, firelight begins illuminating the sacred landscape. The mounds glow softly beneath the fading sky. Shadows stretch across plazas and pathways. The setting feels almost dreamlike, beautiful, quiet, enduring. You sit near the edge of the gathering and watch families sharing stories beside small fires. Children listen carefully. Elders speak patiently. Some stories explain origins. Others teach lessons. Still others preserve memories of important events. These narratives help communities understand themselves. Who are we? Where do we belong? What responsibilities do we carry? Every civilization asks such questions. The Mississippians answered them through ceremonies, symbols, and sacred landscapes. The exact words may be lost. The importance remains visible. As darkness deepens, the stars emerge overhead. Their reflections shimmer in nearby waters. The sounds of ceremony gradually fade into quieter conversations. Yet the spiritual world remains present in the mounds, in the rivers, in the stories, in the shared memories carried forward by each generation. These sacred traditions help hold together a civilization spread across enormous distances. They provide meaning, identity, and continuity. And as the Mississippian world continues growing, those beliefs will travel alongside trade goods and cultural connections, reaching new cities that are rising beyond the shadow of Cahokia. The sacred fires burn low. Night settles across the Mississippi Valley, and the stars wheel silently above rivers that have carried generations of travelers. Cahokia remains the greatest city in the Mississippian world, its mounds towering above the floodplain, like artificial hills shaped by human ambition. Yet Cahokia is not alone. Far beyond its horizons, other centers are rising. Other communities are adapting Mississippian traditions to their own landscapes, climates, and histories. The civilization is spreading, not as a single empire, not as a uniform state, but as a vast cultural world connected through trade, belief, and shared practices. You follow one of the great river routes away from Cahokia. The journey takes days. Forests close around the waterways. Wetlands give way to rolling terrain. New villages appear along the banks. The architecture feels familiar, yet slightly different. The same pattern repeats again and again. Connections remain visible, local identity remains strong. That balance becomes one of the defining characteristics of the Mississippian world. As dawn arrives on another morning, you approach a major settlement hundreds of miles from Cahokia. Mounds rise above the landscape. Plazas occupy central locations. Homes spread outward across carefully organized districts. The city feels important, powerful, independent. People here know about Cahokia. Some may have visited it. Others may have traded with those who have. Yet this place is not simply an imitation. It possesses its own character, its own leadership, its own traditions. You walk through the settlement as the city awakens. Smoke rises from dozens of hearths. Farmers head toward nearby fields. Traders prepare goods for exchange. The rhythm feels familiar. The details, unique. That combination appears repeatedly across Mississippi and North America. Major centers emerge in river valleys throughout the Southeast and Midwest. Some become political hubs. Others gain importance through trade. Certain settlements develop strong ceremonial reputations. Each contributes something different. Together, they form a network of remarkable complexity. Researchers from the University of California and Princeton University have emphasized that the Mississippian phenomenon cannot be understood through Cahokia alone. Archaeological evidence reveals numerous regional centers that adapted common traditions while maintaining distinctive local identities. The finding is important. Civilizations are rarely monolithic. They are often collections of communities linked through shared frameworks. The Mississippian world exemplifies this pattern. You continue southward through time and space. Another city appears along a different river system. Its mounds are arranged differently. Its ceremonial spaces reflect local priorities. Yet similarities remain unmistakable. Large plazas, monumental earthworks, agricultural economies, long-distance trade, shared symbolic traditions. The cultural family resemblance is clear. As afternoon sunlight warms the landscape, you pause near a mound overlooking a bustling settlement. The view reveals a carefully managed environment. Fields extend outward from the city. Forest resources are utilized thoughtfully. Transportation routes connect important locations. Nothing about the settlement feels accidental. Planning matters. Leadership matters. Cooperation matters. Large populations require all three. Below. Ordinary life unfolds much as it does elsewhere in the Mississippian world. Families prepare meals, craftsmen shape tools, children learn skills from older relatives. The details vary, the humanity remains constant. The smell of wood smoke drifts upward from residential districts. Fresh earth scents the air near cultivated fields. A distant drumbeat echoes across the plaza. For a moment, the city feels timeless. Then you remember how much effort it took to create. Every mound required labor. Every field required maintenance. Every social relationship required attention. Civilization survived through continual work, not through momentum alone. You arrive at another regional center where ceremonial activities are underway. Visitors from surrounding communities fill the plazas. Trade goods change hands. Alliances are renewed. The city functions as a gathering point, a place where relationships are strengthened, a place where identity is reinforced. Many Mississippian centers appear to have served similar purposes. They were not merely population centers, they were social anchors, spiritual anchors, political anchors. Their importance extended far beyond the people who lived within them permanently. Historians still debate the degree of independence enjoyed by various regional centers. Some scholars argue that certain settlements maintained close ties to powerful cities like Cahokia. Others emphasize local autonomy and regional innovation. The evidence suggests a complex reality. Connections existed. Independence existed too. The relationship likely shifted over time. Human societies are dynamic. They rarely remain fixed. As evening approaches, you travel farther into the southeast. New environments appear. Rivers flow through different landscapes. Forests change. Wildlife changes. Yet Mississippian traditions continue adapting successfully. That adaptability helps explain the civilization's remarkable reach, rather than imposing identical solutions everywhere. Communities adjust broader ideas to local conditions. A settlement near coastal environments develops differently than one deep within river valleys. A community surrounded by dense forests faces different challenges than one located near open floodplains. Flexibility encourages resilience. The civilization grows stronger because it accommodates variation. The setting sun paints the sky with warm colours. Shadows stretch across plazas and mounds. Families gather for evening meals. You sit quietly near the edge of another thriving city. Children play in the fading light. Elders exchange stories. Traders discuss upcoming journeys. The scene feels familiar now, comfortingly familiar. You have spent enough time in the Mississippian world to recognize its rhythms, its values, its strengths. The cities differ from one another, yet they belong to the same broader cultural landscape. A landscape connected by rivers, ceremonies, trade, and shared traditions. As darkness settles, firelight appears across the settlement. The glow reflects from homes and public spaces. Above everything, the mounds stand watch. Silent, steady, enduring. The civilization has expanded far beyond a single city. Cahokia remains extraordinary, but it is now part of a larger constellation of centers stretching across much of eastern North America. Together, these cities represent one of the greatest achievements in the continent's history. Yet monuments and regional networks tell only part of the story. To truly understand the Mississippian world, you must look beyond leaders and cities. You must return to the people themselves, the farmers, the families, the workers, the children, the countless ordinary lives that sustain this civilization every single day. The cities stand strong across the landscape. Their mounds rise above river valleys. Their plazas host ceremonies, markets, and gatherings. Canoes continue moving along the waterways that bind distant communities together. Yet when evening arrives and the crowds disperse, civilization reveals its true foundation. Not monuments, not leaders, people, ordinary people. You leave the ceremonial centers behind for a time and step into the daily rhythm of Mississippian life. The view changes immediately. Instead of towering earthworks, you see homes. Instead of public ceremonies, you witness family routines. This is where most lives unfold. This is where history quietly happens. The sun has not yet risen when activity begins. The air feels cool and damp. Mist hangs low across nearby fields. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster calls. A fire crackles softly inside a home. The smell of wood smoke drifts through the darkness. A woman rises first, adding fuel to the hearth. Soon other family members awaken. Children stretch sleepily. Elders sit quietly near the warmth. Another day begins. Simple moments like these rarely appear in grand historical narratives. Archaeological excavations uncover mounds, plazas, and ceremonial objects. They seldom preserve conversations and breakfast fires. Yet those conversations mattered. Perhaps they mattered most of all. You sit beside a family preparing a morning meal. Maize remains central to their diet. Beans and squash often accompany it. Seasonal foods provide additional variety. Fish from nearby rivers and game from surrounding forests supplement household supplies. The meal is practical, filling, reliable. Its importance cannot be overstated. Food supports everything else. Without successful agriculture, the cities disappear. Without farmers, there are no ceremonies, no trade networks, no monuments. Researchers from Stanford University and Yale University have emphasized the extraordinary productivity of Mississippian agricultural systems. Extensive cultivation allowed communities to support populations far larger than earlier generations could have sustained. Every harvest matters, every field matters. The connection between labor and survival remains immediate. As sunlight spreads across the landscape, family members move toward their daily responsibilities. Some head for fields beyond the settlement, others remain behind to manage household tasks. Work fills much of the day. It always has. A farmer carries tools toward cultivated land. The soil feels rich beneath his feet. Moisture remains from recent rains. Rows of maize stretch outward across the floodplain. The sight is impressive, not because it is unusual, because it is successful. Generations of experience have taught these communities how to use their environments effectively. They understand local seasons, they understand river behavior, they understand the rhythms of planting and harvest. Knowledge accumulates slowly, then transforms societies. The morning grows warmer. Insects hum above the fields. Sweat forms on foreheads as labour continues. Farming demands effort. There is no escaping that reality. Yet there is satisfaction as well. Healthy crops promise security. Security allows communities to flourish. You follow a narrow path back toward the settlement. Along the way, you encounter children learning practical skills from older relatives. One group gathers edible plants. Another practices crafting simple tools. Education occurs constantly. Not in formal classrooms, in daily life. Knowledge passes through observation and participation. Children learn because they are included. The system feels natural, efficient, enduring. Nearby, an elderly woman teaches younger family members how to prepare food for storage. Her hands move confidently. Experience guides every action. She carries decades of knowledge. The community values that knowledge. Age often brings authority, not because of status alone, because of memory, because of wisdom, because older generations remember lessons younger generations have yet to learn. The smell of drying maize drifts through the air. Clay vessels stand ready for storage. Careful preparation helps communities survive difficult seasons. Planning ahead remains essential. Agricultural abundance reduces risk. It never eliminates it. Floods occur. Droughts occur. Storms damage crops. Wise communities prepare. As afternoon approaches, you visit a craftsman's workshop. Stone flakes scatter across the ground. Tools lie neatly arranged nearby. The craftsman works patiently, shaping materials into useful forms. His movements appear practiced, precise, confident. Years of experience guide every decision. Specialized skills hold great value within Mississippian society. Communities depend upon artisans, builders, traders, and countless others whose expertise supports daily life. Civilization thrives when knowledge becomes diverse. The more people learn different skills, the stronger the community becomes. You notice how interconnected everything feels. The farmer depends upon the toolmaker. The toolmaker depends upon the farmer. Both depend upon traders. Everyone depends upon families raising the next generation. Nothing exists in isolation. The city itself functions as a network of relationships. That network extends through every aspect of life. Historians still debate the exact balance between household independence and broader community obligations within Mississippian settlements. Some evidence suggests families retain substantial autonomy. Other evidence points towards significant communal responsibilities. The truth likely varied across regions and generations. Human societies rarely operate according to a single formula. As evening approaches, activity gradually slows. Workers return from fields, craftsmen conclude their tasks, families gather once more. The atmosphere changes, the urgency of labour fades. Conversation replaces effort. Meals bring people together. You sit beside another household as supper is prepared. Firelight flickers against wooden walls. The smell of cooking food fills the room. Outside, the sounds of the settlement soften beneath the growing darkness. Someone tells a story. Children listen attentively. An elder corrects a detail. Everyone laughs. The moment feels familiar. Thousands of years separate these people from the modern world. Yet the scene remains deeply recognizable. Human connection transcends time. For a while, nobody discusses politics or ceremonies. Nobody speaks about distant trade networks. Nobody worries about monumental construction projects. They focus on one another, on family, on community, on belonging. These simple priorities sustain civilizations more effectively than grand declarations ever could. Night settles fully across the settlement. Stars appear overhead. Firelight glows warmly through doorways. The city grows quiet, not silent, never silent. Somewhere a child cries briefly, a dog barks, a late traveller arrives home. Life continues, and as generations pass through these homes, fields, and workshops, they create the living foundation upon which the entire Mississippian world depends. Their names may be forgotten. Their contributions are not. The evening stories fade into the night. Families settle beside warm hearths. Children drift towards sleep. Firelight dances across wooden walls while distant sounds gradually disappear into darkness. Above the settlements, the stars continue their slow journey. Below them, another important part of Mississippian life quietly flourishes. The world of artists, the world of craftsmen, the world of people whose hands transform ordinary materials into objects of beauty, meaning, and memory. You awaken the next morning in a neighbourhood where creativity fills the air. The sounds differ from those of the farming districts. Instead of hoes striking soil, you hear stone being shaped. Instead of harvesting crops, you see artisans carefully polishing surfaces, carving designs, and preparing materials. Every movement feels deliberate, patient, skilled. Civilizations are often remembered through their art. The Mississippians are no exception. Many of the objects they created survived long after their cities declined. These artifacts offer glimpses into beliefs, social structures, and personal identities that written records never preserved. You approach a workshop where a craftsman sits beside several unfinished pieces. Sunlight enters through the doorway and falls across tools arranged with remarkable care. The materials before him seem ordinary at first glance: stone, clay, shell, copper. Yet under skilled hands, they become something far more meaningful. The craftsman works quietly, his concentration is complete. Tiny adjustments shape the final result. Small details matter very much. The object he creates may eventually travel hundreds of miles. It may become part of an important ceremony. It may pass through several generations of owners. Its journey has not yet begun. For now, it exists only as possibility. Researchers from Harvard University and the University of Chicago have noted that Mississippian artisans produced remarkably sophisticated objects that often carried both practical and symbolic importance. Their work demonstrates technical skill as well as deep cultural knowledge. The combination is impressive. Beauty alone is valuable. Beauty combined with meaning becomes powerful. You continue through the workshop district. Potters shape clay vessels with practiced hands. Some containers will store food. Others will serve ceremonial purposes. Decorative designs appear along their surfaces. The patterns are not random. They communicate identity, memory, tradition. A young apprentice watches carefully as an older potter demonstrates a technique. Every motion contains knowledge accumulated across generations. The apprentice learns by observing, then practicing, then repeating. Mastery here, requires the time. There are no shortcuts. The smell of wet clay mixes with wood smoke from nearby firing pits. The air feels warm. Dust clings lightly to clothing. Round you, dozens of craftsmen contribute to the life of the community. Some create objects used every day. Others produce items reserved for special occasions. Both forms of work matter. Civilization depends upon utility. It also depends upon meaning. You pause beside an artisan working with shell. The material arrived through long-distance trade from distant coastal waters. Its journey alone makes it valuable. Now another transformation begins. Careful carving turns the shell into an ornament. Intricate designs emerge gradually beneath skilled hands. The final object may communicate status, spiritual beliefs, or social connections. The exact message depends upon context. The craftsmanship remains undeniable. Nearby, copper gleams in the sunlight. Unlike iron, copper is relatively soft and can be shaped into decorative forms. Mississippian artisans use it to create striking objects that attract attention immediately. The warm metallic surface catches the eye. It likely did so centuries ago as well. Rare materials often carry prestige. Possessing them signals access to valuable networks and important relationships. art becomes intertwined with social identity. The connection grows stronger over time. As afternoon approaches, you visit a gathering where people wear some of these crafted items. The effect is fascinating. Objects help communicate information before a single word is spoken. Certain ornaments suggest status. Others indicate participation in ceremonies. Some may reflect family or community affiliations. Material culture becomes a language, a visual language. People understand its meanings because they share cultural knowledge. Modern observers can only reconstruct part of that system. Many details remain uncertain. Historians still debate the precise meanings of numerous Mississippian symbols and artistic motifs. Some interpretations emphasize religious significance. Others focus upon political authority, social identity, or connections between the human and natural worlds. No single explanation solves every mystery. The symbols continue inviting interpretation. That mystery adds to their fascination. You walk toward a ceremonial area where artistic expression reaches its most elaborate forms. Decorative objects appear alongside sacred activities. Symbolic imagery covers important items. Careful design choices reinforce larger cultural themes. Art here is not separate from life. It is woven into life. The distinction matters. Many modern societies treat art as something optional. For the Mississippians, artistic expression often carried practical, spiritual, and social functions simultaneously. Beauty serves purpose. Purpose enhances beauty. The relationship feels seamless. A gentle wind moves across the plaza. Sunlight reflects from polished surfaces. Children watch artisans with obvious curiosity. Some of those children will become future craftsmen. Others will not. Either way, they are learning. They're absorbing traditions simply by living within them. Cultural continuity depends upon such moments. Not formal instruction alone. Daily exposure, repeated experience, shared values. As evening approaches, you return to a residential area. Families gather outside their homes. Some individuals wear carefully crafted ornaments produced by local artisans. Others use pottery created within the community. The objects have become part of ordinary life. That may be their greatest achievement. True craftsmanship integrates itself into daily experience. It becomes familiar without losing significance. The smell of supper drifts through the cooling air. Firelight begins appearing once more across the settlement. Conversations fill the spaces between homes. The artists finish their work for the day. The potters cover unfinished pieces. The carvers set aside their tools. The metalworkers clean their work areas. Tomorrow they will continue. Civilizations require constant creation. Objects wear out. New generations need instruction. Traditions must be renewed. The work never truly ends, and because it never ends, the artistic legacy of the Mississippians grows richer with each passing generation, through clay, shell, copper, stone, and imagination. They leave behind traces of identity that survive long after cities rise and fall. Yet even thriving societies face challenges. Beyond the glow of these hearth fires, tensions are beginning to emerge. Competition is growing. Resources are becoming more valuable. And in some regions, communities are preparing not for ceremonies, but for conflict. The workshops grow quiet as night settles across the settlements. Pottery cools beside dying fires. Tools rest where craftsmen left them. Families retreat indoors while stars emerge above the river valleys. For generations, the Mississippian world has expanded through farming, trade, ceremony, and cooperation. Cities have flourished. Networks have grown. Communities have prospered. Yet prosperity often brings new challenges. As populations increase and valuable resources become more important, competition begins to appear in places where cooperation once seemed sufficient. The change is gradual, almost invisible at first. A disagreement over territory, a dispute involving trade, tensions between neighboring communities. No single event transforms the entire civilization. Instead, small pressures accumulate over time. You awaken beside a settlement unlike some of the peaceful communities you have visited before. The morning air feels crisp. A thin layer of mist hangs above nearby fields. At first glance, everything seems familiar. Then you notice the wall. A wooden palisade surrounds part of the settlement. Strong posts stand side by side, forming a defensive barrier. The sight immediately changes the atmosphere. People do not build fortifications without reason. The wall represents concern, preparation, uncertainty. You walk closer and examine the structure. The wooden posts are thick and carefully placed. Entry points are limited. The builders clearly intended to control movement into the community. Construction requires substantial labor. The effort suggests that protection has become important. Very important. Researchers from Stanford University and the University of California have documented increasing evidence of fortified settlements in certain Mississippian regions, particularly during later periods. Archaeological findings indicate that some communities invested heavily in defensive structures. The reasons remain complex. Human conflict rarely emerges from a single cause. Population growth may contribute. Competition over resources may contribute. Political rivalries may contribute. The exact balance varies from place to place. You pass through the settlement entrance as daily life begins. Despite the presence of defences, ordinary activities continue. Farmers head toward fields. Children play near homes. Craftsmen prepare for another day of work. Life does not stop because danger exists. People adapt. They always have. The smell of wood smoke drifts through the cool morning air. Dogs move between buildings. Voices carry across open spaces. Yet beneath these familiar scenes lies a subtle awareness. The world feels less certain than before. As populations expand, valuable agricultural land becomes increasingly important. Productive floodplains support growing communities. Access to trade routes offers economic advantages. Such benefits attract attention, sometimes friendly attention, sometimes not. You climb a section of the defensive wall and look outward across the surrounding landscape. Forests stretch toward distant horizons. Rivers continue their ancient journeys. The view appears peaceful. Appearances can be deceptive. A settlement does not need to experience constant attacks to justify precautions. The possibility of conflict may be enough. Preparation often feels wiser than regret. Historians still debate the precise causes behind increased fortification in some Mississippian regions. Some scholars emphasize warfare and organized violence. Others point towards social instability, migration pressures, or political fragmentation. The evidence suggests multiple factors were likely involved. Human societies are complicated. Their problems tend to be as well. As midday approaches, you observe training activities near the edge of the settlement. Young men practice with weapons used for hunting and defense. Older individuals offer instruction. The scene feels serious, not aggressive. Preparation rather than celebration. The skills being taught have practical value. A successful hunter often possesses abilities useful during conflict. Accuracy, patience, awareness, endurance. The overlap is natural. Nearby, elders discuss events affecting neighbouring communities. News travels through trade networks and personal contacts. Information remains valuable, perhaps more valuable now than before. Knowing what happens beyond local boundaries helps communities prepare for future challenges. The rivers still connect people, but connections can spread tension as well as opportunity. A warm breeze arrives during the afternoon. The smell of fresh earth rises from cultivated fields. Farmers continue working despite the presence of defensive walls. Their priorities remain unchanged. Crops must be planted. Harvests must be gathered. Families must be fed. Conflict rarely eliminates daily responsibilities. If anything, it makes them more urgent. You visit another settlement several days later. Here the defences appear even stronger. Multiple barriers surround important areas. Elevated positions provide wider views of the surrounding landscape. The pattern repeats across certain regions. Not everywhere, but often enough to attract attention. The Mississippian world remains vast and diverse. Many communities continue experiencing relative stability. Trade persists. Ceremonies continue. Agricultural production remains strong. Yet signs of strain are becoming more visible. Competition appears to be increasing. The reasons vary. The consequences begin accumulating as evening approaches. You sit beside a family gathered near a hearth. The meal feels familiar, the conversations feel familiar, but occasionally someone glances toward the settlement wall. The gesture is brief, almost unconscious. Still, it reveals something important. Security has become part of daily life, a concern that previous generations may have felt less intensely. Children listen as adults discuss neighbouring communities. Some relationships remain friendly, others appear more complicated. Human nature has not changed. Cooperation and competition often exist side by side. They always have. The fire crackles softly. Shadows move across the walls of the home. Outside, guards begin taking positions near entrances and defensive structures. The sight feels sobering, yet not hopeless. Communities remain resilient. They adapt to changing circumstances. That adaptability helped create the Mississippian world in the first place. It may help sustain it now, as darkness settles fully over the settlement. The wooden palisade stands silhouetted against the night sky. Torches provide pools of light near important entrances beyond the walls. Forests disappear into darkness. Inside, life continues. Families sleep. Children dream. Elders remember earlier times. The civilization remains strong, but subtle changes are underway. Fortified settlements, growing competition, and shifting regional dynamics suggest that the future may not unfold as smoothly as the past. For now, the mounds still stand tall, the cities still prosper, the rivers still carry trade and travellers, yet new pressures are gathering beneath the surface. And some of the greatest challenges facing the Mississippian world will not come from neighbouring communities at all. They will come from the environment itself. The palisades remain standing. Their wooden walls cast long shadows across settlements that continue to work, trade, celebrate, and endure. Life moves forward despite uncertainty. Crops still grow, children still learn, ceremonies still gather crowds beneath the great mounds. Yet beyond the concerns of politics and conflict, another force is quietly shaping the future: the environment. For centuries, the rivers have been generous. Floodplains have provided fertile soil. Forests have supplied timber. Wetlands have supported fish, birds, and countless other resources. The natural world has helped sustain the growth of the Mississippian civilization, but nature does not remain fixed. Rivers shift course. Weather patterns change. Forests recover slowly after heavy use. Even the richest landscapes possess limits. You awaken before sunrise beside a farming community near a broad river. The air feels unusually dry. Dust rises beneath your feet as you walk toward the fields. The crops still stand, the harvest still appears promising, yet experienced farmers notice subtle differences. They always do. A season arrives slightly later than expected. Rainfall becomes less predictable. Water levels fluctuate. At first, these changes seem minor, almost unimportant. But small changes repeated across years can produce enormous consequences. You watch a farmer kneel beside a row of maize. He examines the soil carefully. His hands move through the earth with the confidence of someone who has spent a lifetime working the land. Experience. Observation. Observation teaches caution. The farmer cannot control the weather. He can only respond to it. That reality has shaped human history since the beginning. Researchers from institutions including Columbia University and Stanford University have identified evidence suggesting that environmental changes affected parts of the Mississippian world during crucial periods of its history. Variations in climate and river behavior may have influenced agricultural productivity and settlement stability. The key word is may. Environmental history rarely offers simple answers. Still, the evidence deserves attention. You continue walking through the fields as morning sunlight spreads across the floodplain. The landscape remains beautiful. Birds move among reeds near the river. A light breeze rustles through crops. Nothing looks catastrophic. That is often how major environmental challenges begin. not with disaster. With subtle shifts, the river itself provides another reminder. For generations, communities have depended upon its predictable rhythms. Seasonal flooding replenishes soil, waterways support transportation and fishing, yet rivers possess their own logic. They are living system. They change course. They flood unexpectedly. They erode banks. They create new channels. The same river that nourishes a settlement can also threaten it. You stand on elevated ground overlooking a broad stretch of water. The current moves steadily southward. Muddy banks reveal evidence of previous floods. Fallen trees mark older river paths. The landscape is constantly evolving. Human communities must evolve with it. Some succeed, others struggle. As populations grow, environmental pressures become more noticeable. Larger cities require more timber for construction. More fields must be cleared for agriculture. More fuel is needed for cooking and heating. The demands accumulate, year after year, generation after generation. A forest that once seemed endless begins retreating farther from major settlements. Not disappearing, just moving away. The change requires additional effort. Wood must be gathered from greater distances. Transportation becomes more demanding. Time becomes more valuable. Small inconveniences multiply. The smell of freshly cut timber fills the afternoon air as workers return from a distant woodland. Their journey took longer than it would have for their grandparents. That detail matters. Civilizations often grow gradually. Their challenges do the same. You visit a settlement where local leaders discuss agricultural concerns. No panic fills the gathering, no dramatic speeches occur. Only practical conversations. How should resources be managed? Which fields remain most productive? How can future harvests be protected? These discussions reveal an important truth. People recognize change. They respond to it. The Mississippians are not passive observers of their environment. They actively adapt whenever possible. That adaptability has helped sustain their success. For centuries, historians still debate the precise role environmental factors played in the later history of major Mississippian centers. Some scholars emphasize climate variability and ecological pressures. Others argue political and social dynamics were equally important. The debate continues because the evidence points toward complexity. Rarely does a single cause explain the rise or decline of a civilization. Multiple forces interact. They reinforce one another. They create outcomes no one fully predicts. As evening approaches, clouds gather across the horizon. Thunder rumbles faintly in the distance. Farmers glance upward with cautious optimism. Rain is welcome. Most of the time. Too little causes concern. Too much causes concern as well. Agricultural societies often live between those extremes, dependent upon conditions they cannot entirely control. The first drops begin falling, then more. The smell of rain on dry soil rises into the air. Children laugh and run through the settlement. Adults smile. For now, the storm appears beneficial. For now, you sit beneath a shelter and watch the rain spread across fields and pathways. Water collects in shallow depressions. The river begins responding almost immediately. The scene feels peaceful, yet it also serves as a reminder. Nature remains powerful. Always. No city, however impressive, escapes that reality. No mound, however massive, changes it. The Mississippian world has achieved remarkable things. Its cities rival many elsewhere in the medieval world. Its trade networks span enormous distances. Its ceremonial centers inspire awe, but every achievement ultimately rests upon environmental foundations. Healthy soil, reliable water, productive forests, stable seasons. When those foundations shift, societies must adapt. The question is not whether change will occur. It always does. The question is whether adaptation can keep pace. Night settles slowly across the landscape. Rain continues falling gently. Firelight glows through doorways. Families gather indoors while the storm passes overhead. The civilization remains strong, yet subtle pressures continue accumulating. Environmental challenges alone will not determine the future. Neither will politics, neither will conflict. The story is becoming more complicated than that, and as the generations move forward, signs of strain will begin appearing in places that once seemed secure, even in the shadow of the greatest city of them all. The rain eventually passes. By morning, droplets cling to leaves and grasses throughout the floodplain. The rivers move a little higher. Birds return to the wetlands. Smoke rises once more from hundreds of hearths. Life continues, as it always has. Yet beneath the familiar routines of the Mississippian world, subtle changes are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The great cities still stand. The mounds still dominate the landscape. The ceremonies still gather crowds, but signs of strain are beginning to appear. Not everywhere, not all at once, and not in ways that would immediately alarm the people living through them. History rarely works that way. Major transformations often begin quietly. You find yourself once again near Cahokia, the greatest city of the Mississippian Civilization. The skyline remains impressive. Monk's Mound still rises above the surrounding landscape. Plazas continue to host activity. To an outside visitor, the city appears successful. Perhaps even permanent. Yet permanence is often an illusion. You walk through a district that was once crowded with homes. Some structures remain occupied. Others show signs of neglect. A few stand abandoned altogether. And the changes are subtle, easy to overlook. But they are there. A city does not decline in a single day. It changes gradually. One family leaves, then another. A neighborhood becomes slightly quieter. An empty home remains unrepaired. Years pass. The pattern continues. You pause beside a pathway where weeds have begun growing through the earth. Children still play nearby. Traders still travel through the area. Yet something feels different. Less crowded. Less energetic. The shift is difficult to measure. It is easier to sense. Researchers from Washington University and the University of Chicago have identified evidence suggesting that population patterns within Cahokia changed significantly over time. Certain areas appear to have experienced declining occupation, even while other parts of the city remained active. The reasons remain complex. Population movement rarely has a single cause. People relocate for many reasons. Opportunity, resource availability, political changes, family connections, environmental concerns. The story is rarely simple. You continue through the city during the warmth of afternoon. Farmers still bring goods to market. Artisans still create beautiful objects. Ceremonial activities continue. Nothing about the city suggests immediate collapse. That is important to remember. Historical decline often unfolds over generations rather than moments. Those living through it may not recognize the process while it occurs. For them, life remains ordinary. Work continues. Meals are prepared. Children are born. The future still seems open. A warm wind moves across the plaza. Dust swirls briefly before settling again. Nearby, elders discuss events occurring in distant communities. The wider Mississippian world is changing as well. Regional centers that once maintained strong connections may be pursuing different paths. Trade networks shift, alliances evolve, new local priorities emerge. Flexibility can be a strength. It can also reduce cohesion. The balance becomes increasingly delicate. You visit a gathering where community leaders discuss practical concerns. Agricultural productivity remains essential. Resource management remains important. Social stability remains valuable. The conversations feel measured, thoughtful. No one appears panicked. Yet everyone understands that challenges exist. The confidence of earlier centuries has become more cautious, more reflective. Historians still debate exactly what combination of factors contributed to growing instability in parts of the Mississippian world. Some scholars emphasize environmental pressures, others focus on social tensions, political changes, demographic shifts, or disruptions within long-established networks. The evidence suggests that multiple influences interacted simultaneously. The situation resembles a woven basket. Remove a single strand and the structure remains intact. Weaken several strands at once and the basket becomes vulnerable. The metaphor feels appropriate. Civilizations are woven together from many different elements: agriculture, leadership, belief, trade, community. When several face strain simultaneously, adaptation becomes more difficult. As evening approaches, you walk through an area where construction activity has slowed noticeably. Earlier generations invested enormous effort into new monuments and public works. Now the pace feels different, less ambitious, more focused on maintenance than expansion. The change carries meaning. Growing societies often build, stable societies maintain, struggling societies postpone. The distinction is not always obvious, yet it matters. The smell of wood smoke drifts across the city as families prepare supper. The scene remains comforting, familiar. Children laugh, dogs wander through pathways, neighbours exchange news, daily life continues. That continuity can hide larger changes occurring beneath the surface. Human beings are remarkably adaptable. They normalise gradual shifts. A slightly smaller crowd feels normal after enough time. A quieter neighbourhood feels normal after enough time. A reduced flow of visitors feels normal after enough time. Adaptation helps people endure. It can also obscure long-term trends. You sit beside a household sharing an evening meal. An elderly man remembers stories from decades earlier, when certain plazas seemed more crowded and ceremonies drew larger gatherings. His memories may be accurate, or perhaps nostalgia colours them slightly. Human memory works that way. Even so, his observations reflect something important. The city is changing. The world around it is changing too. Night settles gently across Cahokia. Firelight flickers against walls and rooftops. Monk's Mound remains visible beneath the stars, enormous and silent. Its presence still inspires awe. Its authority still feels real. Yet even the greatest monuments cannot guarantee permanence. The forces shaping history continue moving, slowly, patiently, relentlessly. Some communities adapt successfully to new circumstances. Others struggle. Regional differences become more pronounced. Old patterns become harder to sustain. The Mississippian world remains alive, creative, resilient, but the signs of strain are becoming increasingly visible. And nowhere will those changes prove more significant than in Cahokia itself, where the greatest city north of ancient Mexico is preparing to enter the most uncertain chapter of its remarkable history. The city still stands. Monk's Mound rises above the floodplain. The great plazas remain visible beneath open skies. Pathways continue connecting neighborhoods that have existed for generations. At sunrise, Cahokia can still appear magnificent. The first light catches the upper terraces of the great mound. Mist drifts across the fields. Birds circle above wetlands beyond the city. For a moment, it feels eternal. Yet history has quietly entered a new phase. The changes that once appeared subtle are becoming harder to ignore. You walk through Cahokia during an autumn morning. The air feels cool. Fallen leaves gather along pathways. Smoke rises from hearths as families prepare for another day. Life continues, but the city no longer feels quite as crowded as before. Certain districts contain empty spaces where homes once stood. Some structures have been abandoned. Others show signs of limited repair. The transformation remains gradual. Still, it is unmistakable. The great city is shrinking. Not suddenly, not dramatically, slowly, like a river changing course over many seasons. Researchers from Washington University and Harvard University have concluded that Cahokia experienced substantial population decline after reaching its peak. Archaeological evidence suggests that many residents gradually departed over time, leaving portions of the city less densely occupied. The reasons remain among the most fascinating questions in North American archaeology, and among the most debated. You continue walking through the city. The sounds are familiar. Children still play. Farmers still arrive from nearby fields. Craftsmen still work. The city has not become a ghost town. Far from it. People remain here. Many people. Yet the momentum that once drove extraordinary growth appears to be fading. You pause beside an open area that earlier generations may have filled with activity. Grass now grows where constant foot traffic once kept the ground bare. The site feels strangely moving, not tragic, reflective. Civilizations change because people change. Communities move. Priorities evolve. The future rarely unfolds exactly as anyone expects. A cool breeze moves across the plaza. The scent of wood smoke lingers in the air. Nearby, an elder watches children playing and perhaps remembers busier years. Or perhaps not. Perhaps each generation simply experiences the city as it exists in their own time. That seems likely. Human beings adapt remarkably well. As populations shift, leadership faces new challenges. Maintaining large ceremonial centres requires labour. Public works require coordination. Extensive social networks require attention. All of these systems depend upon people. When populations decline, even slightly, the effects spread outward. A little less labour, a little less coordination, a little less surplus. The changes accumulate. Historians still debate which factors contributed most significantly to Cahokia's decline. Some scholars emphasize environmental stress, including flooding and resource pressures. Others point toward political instability, social conflict, or changing trade patterns. Many researchers believe multiple factors interacted over generations. The evidence supports caution. Simple explanations rarely fit complex societies. You climb partway up Monk's Mound during the afternoon. The ascent feels familiar now. The earth beneath your feet remains firm, the structure remains enormous. From the summit, the city stretches outward across the landscape. The view remains impressive, yet it also reveals change in some ways. Certain areas appear less densely occupied than they once were. Open spaces interrupt former patterns of settlement. The urban landscape feels more fragmented. The transformation is not complete, but it is underway. You sit quietly and look across the floodplain. The Mississippi River continues flowing as it always has, indifferent to human ambition, indifferent to human disappointment. The river witnessed Cahokia's rise. It now witnesses Cahokia's transformation. That perspective feels humbling. For a moment, your mind drifts back to the earliest farming villages that helped create the Mississippian world. Their builders could never have imagined a city of Cahokia's scale. Likewise, many residents of Cahokia's peak could never have imagined its gradual decline. History often surprises everyone involved. As evening approaches, you descend into the city once more. Families prepare meals. Firelight begins appearing across neighborhoods. The atmosphere remains warm and familiar. Life goes on. That fact matters. Decline does not erase humanity. People still love their families, still celebrate important events, still plan for tomorrow. The city may be changing, but daily life remains meaningful. You pass through a neighborhood where several homes remain occupied beside empty plots. The contrast feels striking. Presence and absence, memory and continuity, past and future, all sharing the same space. The smell of cooking maize drifts through the cooling air. Laughter rises from a nearby gathering. Somewhere a musician plays softly. The city retains its spirit, even as its population shifts, even as its influence changes. Civilizations rarely disappear overnight. They transform, they fragment, they evolve into new forms. Cahokia follows that pattern. Night settles across the great city. Monk's Mound stands dark against a field of stars. Its silhouette remains powerful, even in silence. The mound endures, the people endure. For now, yet the era of Cahokia's unquestioned dominance is ending. Communities throughout the Mississippian world are increasingly charting their own paths. Regional centers continue adapting, local traditions continue evolving. The future will belong not to one great city, but to many different communities responding to changing circumstances in different ways. And as Cahokia gradually fades from its position at the center of the world, the Mississippian civilization enters a new chapter, one defined by resilience, adaptation, and the persistence of traditions long after monumental cities begin to quiet. The great city grows quieter, not empty, not abandoned, simply quieter. The plazas that once hosted immense gatherings still exist. The towering mounds still dominate the landscape. The river still flows past the floodplain as it has for thousands of years. Yet Cahokia is no longer the unquestioned center of the Mississippian world. Its influence has diminished. Its population has shrunk. Its future has become uncertain. And across eastern North America, Communities are responding in different ways. You move forward through time and away from the great city. The journey carries you along rivers and through forests where countless settlements continue adapting to new realities. The Mississippian world is not disappearing, it is transforming. That distinction is important. History often focuses on the decline of famous cities, yet when cities shrink, people do not simply vanish, they relocate, they reorganize, they carry traditions with them. Human cultures are remarkably durable. Even when political centers change, you arrive at a regional settlement several generations after Cahokia's peak. The community feels vibrant. Children play beside homes, farmers work nearby fields, ceremonies continue at local gathering places. Life remains active, purposeful, resilient. The city may not rival Cahokia in size, but it does not need to. Its people are focused on their own future, not on preserving someone else's past. A cool morning breeze moves through the settlement. The smell of fresh earth rises from cultivated fields. Canoes rest along a nearby riverbank. The scene feels familiar. Because much of Mississippian life continues, agriculture remains essential. Trade persists. Families maintain traditions. Communities adapt. The continuity is striking. Researchers from Yale University and Princeton University have emphasized that the decline of major centers did not mark the end of Mississippian culture. Archaeological evidence demonstrates that many communities continued thriving while preserving important traditions and adapting them to changing circumstances. The finding challenges a common misconception. Civilizations are not always destroyed. Sometimes they evolve, sometimes they decentralize, sometimes they become something new. You walk through a marketplace where traders continue exchanging goods. The scale may be smaller than in earlier centuries, but the activity remains impressive. Relationships endure. Networks survive. People still travel considerable distances. The rivers continue serving as pathways connecting communities. Not every connection disappears when a major city declines. Many remain surprisingly resilient. As midday approaches, you visit a ceremonial area where local traditions continue flourishing. Gatherings still bring people together. Elders still pass knowledge to younger generations. The spiritual world remains important. The stories remain important. The sense of identity remains important. Communities preserve what matters most. That process becomes one of the defining themes of this era. Preservation through adaptation. The phrase may sound contradictory. It is not. Human societies often survive by changing. Those that refuse to adapt rarely endure for long. You notice subtle differences between this community and earlier settlements. Certain artistic styles have evolved, some ceremonial practices appear more localized. Leadership structures seem tailored to regional needs. The culture is familiar, yet not identical. Time leaves its mark on everything, even traditions. Historians still debate the extent to which later communities consciously remembered the great urban centers of earlier generations. Some scholars believe memories of places like Cahokia may have persisted through oral traditions. Others argue that changing social conditions gradually reshaped cultural memory. The evidence remains difficult to interpret. Oral traditions evolve. Memories transform. Stories adapt to new realities. The uncertainty feels appropriate. Human memory is complex. As afternoon sunlight warms the landscape, you travel farther across the Mississippian world. Similar patterns appear repeatedly. Communities continue farming. Trade continues. Ceremonial life continues. The scale changes. The foundations remain. The resilience is remarkable. You stop beside a river where several families prepare for a journey. Canoes are loaded with supplies. Children help gather equipment. Elders offer advice. The scene could have occurred centuries earlier or centuries later. Certain aspects of life endure. The river itself offers a lesson. Its course shifts gradually over time. Channels change, banks erode, new paths emerge. Yet the river remains the river. Culture often behaves similarly. The shape changes. The essence continues. The smell of river water mixes with wood smoke drifting from nearby homes. Birds call from dense forests along the shoreline. The environment remains rich with life. Many communities continue finding ways to thrive within it. Not every challenge disappears. Resource pressures remain. Political tensions occasionally emerge. Environmental conditions continue fluctuating. The world remains uncertain. But uncertainty does not prevent survival. Quite the opposite. Adaptation grows from uncertainty. As evening approaches, you sit beside a gathering of families sharing a communal meal. Firelight illuminates familiar faces. Stories pass between generations. Children listen attentively. The atmosphere feels comforting. Grounded. Human. These people may never see Cahokia. They may never stand atop Monk's Mound. Yet they remain heirs to the broader Mississippian tradition. Its agricultural knowledge, its ceremonial practices, its artistic heritage, its understanding of rivers and landscapes. Civilizations live within people as much as within cities, perhaps more so. Night settles slowly across the settlement. Stars appear overhead. The sounds of conversation soften. You look around and realize something important. The Mississippian world has survived the decline of its greatest city. Not unchanged, not untouched, but alive. The story did not end when Cahokia's influence faded. It continued through countless communities carrying forward pieces of a shared cultural inheritance. And those communities will soon face another transformation, one unlike anything previous generations could have imagined. Far beyond the horizon, new arrivals are approaching the continent. Their journeys have already begun. Their impact will eventually reshape North America. But for now, the descendants of the Mississippians continue living beside their rivers, preserving traditions, adapting to change, and carrying the memory of a remarkable civilization into an uncertain future. The rivers still flow. They wind through forests, wetlands, and fertile valleys just as they did centuries earlier. Canoes continue traveling familiar routes. Farmers continue tending fields. Families continue gathering beside evening fires. Life remains recognizable, yet the world is moving toward another great turning point. The Mississippian civilization has changed significantly since the height of Cahokia. Major urban centers have declined. Regional communities have adapted. Traditions continue, though often in new forms. The story is not ending, but a new chapter is approaching. You drift forward through the centuries after Cahokia's decline. Across eastern North America, descendant communities continue shaping their futures. Some settlements flourish, others relocate. Trade networks evolve. The landscape remains inhabited, vibrantly inhabited. That fact deserves emphasis. Too many later accounts would wrongly describe vast regions of North America as empty wilderness. They were not. The descendants of the Mississippians lived throughout these lands, maintaining societies rooted in deep historical traditions. You arrive at a riverside community during the early morning. Mist rises from the water. Children help prepare fishing equipment. Farmers discuss upcoming planting seasons. The atmosphere feels peaceful, ordinary, human. Generations have passed since the height of Cahokia, yet many elements of daily life remain familiar. Agriculture continues supporting communities. Ceremonial traditions remain important. Knowledge still passes through families and elders. Continuity persists, even amid change. Researchers from Harvard University and Yale University have emphasized that many native societies encountered by the early Europeans possess deep cultural roots extending back through centuries of Mississippian development. The connections were often complex, but they were real. History rarely begins where written records begin. That distinction matters enormously. You walk through the settlement and notice how local traditions have evolved. Artistic styles differ somewhat from earlier periods. Community organization reflects changing circumstances. New influences have appeared, yet familiar themes remain visible. The river remains central. Agriculture remains central. Community remains central. The foundations endure. As midday approaches, Travelers arrive carrying news from distant regions. Information spreads through networks that still connect many communities. Stories move along river routes. Alliances form and shift. The world remains dynamic. No society stands still for long. You sit beneath the shade of a tree while elders discuss events occurring far beyond the settlement. Their conversations reveal an awareness of broader regional developments. People remain connected, curious, engaged. The descendants of the Mississippians are not isolated remnants of a vanished age. They are participants in a living present. That perspective is important. Historical decline does not erase agency. Communities continue making choices, adapting strategies, building futures. The afternoon grows warm. Insects hum near the riverbank. The smell of fresh fish drifts from cooking areas. Nearby, a young person learns a traditional skill from an older relative. The lesson unfolds patiently. Knowledge passes through demonstration and practice. Much has changed since Cahokia's peak. This process has not. The continuity feels reassuring. As you watch, your thoughts drift toward the approaching future. Across the Atlantic Ocean, European societies are undergoing transformations of their own. Maritime exploration expands, new trade routes emerge. The two worlds remain separated. For now, yet the distance is shrinking, gradually, relentlessly. Historians still debate how much indirect knowledge of distant events may have reached various native communities before sustained European contact. The evidence remains limited and often uncertain. What is clear is that the coming encounters would eventually create profound consequences for everyone involved. Neither side fully understood what was approaching. Perhaps no one could ever. As evening approaches, you visit a ceremonial gathering where community members reaffirm social bonds and shared traditions. Songs fill the air. Stories connect generations. The atmosphere feels both ancient and immediate. The people participating do not know they stand near the edge of a major historical transition. Why would they? To them, tomorrow appears much like today. The future always hides itself. That is one of history's most enduring truths. A cool breeze arrives from the river as the sun begins sinking toward the horizon. Golden light spreads across fields and waterways. Children chase one another through open spaces while adults prepare evening meals. The scene feels timeless, yet time continues moving. Somewhere along the distant coastlines, unfamiliar ships will eventually appear. News will travel inland. Questions will follow. Opportunities and dangers alike will emerge. The consequences will unfold over generations, not instantly. History seldom works instantly. You sit quietly beside a fire as darkness gathers. The smell of wood smoke rises toward a sky filled with stars. Elders tell stories preserving community memory. Younger listeners absorb lessons they will carry into adulthood. The moment feels precious because it represents continuity, because it represents resilience, because it reminds you that civilizations are not simply collections of monuments. They are people. The Mississippian legacy survives not only in mounds and artifacts, but also in descendants who continue adapting to changing circumstances. The cities may have transformed. The traditions continue. Night deepens across the settlement. The stars brighten overhead. The river reflects their light as it flows steadily onward. The world remains familiar, for now, yet profound changes are approaching from beyond the horizon. New diseases, new technologies, new political realities, and new relationships will eventually reshape North America. The descendants of the Mississippians will confront those challenges with the same resilience that carried their ancestors through centuries of transformation. And long after outsiders begin recording their observations, the deeper story of the Mississippian world will continue living within the nations and communities that inherit its legacy. The river continues beneath the stars. Its waters carry reflections of moonlight across channels that have witnessed thousands of years of human history. Along its banks, generations have planted crops, raised families, traded goods, and told stories about the world around them. The great mound cities may have changed. The people remain. That truth becomes increasingly important as you move deeper into the story's final centuries. For a long time, many histories focused heavily on the rise and decline of places like Cahokia. Monumental cities captured attention. Massive earthworks inspired curiosity. Archaeologists searched for explanations behind their growth and transformation. Those questions remain valuable, but they are not the entire story. A civilization does not truly disappear when its largest cities fade. Its legacy continues through the people who inherit it. You awaken beside a river community where dawn is just beginning to break. The air feels cool and fresh, mist drifts above the water. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs while helping prepare for the day's work. The scene feels familiar. That familiarity matters. Many traditions that helped shape the Mississippian world continue influencing descendant communities long after the peak of the great mound centers. Agricultural knowledge survives. Ceremonial traditions survive. Relationships with rivers and landscapes survive. Memories survive. Sometimes clearly, sometimes indirectly, yet they survive. You walk through the settlement as the morning grows brighter. Families move through daily routines. Elders share advice. Young people learn practical skills. The continuity is striking. History often emphasizes dramatic change because dramatic change attracts attention. Continuity can be quieter, yet continuity may be even more powerful. Researchers from Princeton University and Harvard University have emphasized that many native nations encountered in later centuries preserved cultural elements rooted in earlier Mississippian traditions. The connections varied across regions, but the broader legacy remained significant. The finding changes perspective. Instead of viewing the Mississippians as a vanished civilization, it becomes more accurate to view them as ancestors whose influence continued through later generations. You pause beside a group of elders sharing stories with younger listeners. Their words carry lessons about responsibility, community, and identity. The stories themselves may have changed over time. That is normal. All traditions evolve, yet their purpose remains recognizable. They help people understand who they are. They help communities remember where they belong. The process feels timeless. As afternoon approaches, you travel across different regions once connected through the broader Mississippian world. The landscapes vary considerably. Some communities live near major rivers, others occupy forested regions, others adapt to environments farther south. Differences exist everywhere, yet certain patterns continue appearing. Strong agricultural traditions, complex social relationships, deep connections to place, respect for inherited knowledge. The legacy survives in many forms. Historians still debate exactly how specific traditions passed from earlier Mississippian societies into later native nations. Some cultural connections are supported by substantial evidence. Others remain subjects of scholarly discussion. The passage of centuries complicates the picture. Communities change, migrations occur, new influences emerge. Even so, the broader continuity remains difficult to ignore. Human cultures rarely begin from nothing. They build upon what came before. A warm breeze moves through the trees as you sit beside another riverside gathering. Canoes rest along the shoreline. The smell of cooking food drifts through the air. Nearby, younger community members learn about fishing locations, seasonal cycles, and local geography. The lesson extends beyond practical survival. It teaches belonging. Knowledge of place often becomes knowledge of identity. The Mississippian world was deeply rooted in particular landscapes. Its descendants continue maintaining those relationships. For a moment, your thoughts return to Monk's Mound. The immense earthwork still stands. Centuries have passed, generations have come and gone, yet the mound remains visible above the floodplain. Its survival feels symbolic. The structure endures, so does the legacy. Not unchanged, not frozen in time, alive. Living traditions rarely remain static. They adapt because adaptation allows survival. The afternoon slowly gives way to evening. Sunlight softens across fields and forests. Shadows lengthen along riverbanks. You visit a community celebration where families gather to share food, stories, and companionship. Children run through open spaces. Elders watch with quiet satisfaction. The atmosphere feels warm, human, enduring. Moments like these rarely appear in written records. They leave limited archaeological evidence. Future historians may never know the names of the people involved. Yet these moments matter. They are where culture lives, not only in monuments, not only in ceremonies, in relationships, in families, in communities. The realization feels important, perhaps even comforting. Civilizations are often measured through their greatest buildings, but their deepest legacy may reside elsewhere, in the values they pass forward, in the knowledge they preserve, in the people who carry their stories into the future. As darkness approaches, firelight begins appearing across the settlement. The smell of wood smoke rises gently into the evening air. Crickets begin their nightly chorus. You sit beside the fire and reflect upon the long journey. The earliest farming villages, the rise of ceremonial centres, the construction of mounds, the growth of Cahokia, the flourishing of cities, the challenges, the transformations, the adaptations. None of it exists in isolation. Each generation contributes something. Each generation inherits something. The chain remains unbroken. Night settles fully across the landscape as stars emerge overhead, just as they did for the first farmers who planted maize beside these rivers centuries earlier. The same sky, the same rivers, different generations, connected lives. The descendants of the Mississippians continue shaping their own futures while carrying pieces of an ancient inheritance. Their existence reminds you that history is not merely a collection of endings. It's also a story of continuation. And that continuation helps explain why the Mississippian civilization remains one of the most important chapters in the history of North America. Its cities may have changed, its legacy never truly vanished. The night over the river is quiet now, not empty, but calm in the way ancient landscapes often become when human voices soften and only wind. Water and distant firelight remain. Stars stretch endlessly above the Mississippi Valley, just as they did for every generation that came before. And just as they still do for the people who live here, you stand at the edge of time itself, looking back across the long arc of a civilization that rose from riverbanks and floodplains, shaped earth into mountains, and built cities that once rivaled anything north of ancient Mesoamerica. The Mississippian world is no longer centered on a single towering city. It has become something more distributed, more regional, more human in its spread, but its story is far from over. You walk once more through landscapes that feel both ancient and familiar. Rivers continue carving their paths, fields still yield harvests. Communities still gather in circles of shared life. The great mounds remain scattered across the land like memory made visible. Some stand near active communities, others rise quietly from grass and forest, no longer surrounded by dense urban life, but still carrying the shape of human intention across centuries. These earthworks endure. They do not forget, and neither do the people, because the most important legacy of the Mississippian world was never only its cities. It was its continuity of life across generations, its adaptation, its resilience, its ability to transform without going, this is not disappearing. You sit beside a riverbank where countless lives have unfolded. The water moves steadily, indifferent to human boundaries, yet deeply intertwined with human history. Archaeologists from institutions such as Harvard University, Stanford University, the University of Chicago, and the University of California continue studying these landscapes. Their findings reveal a civilization far more complex than early assumptions once suggested. A world of cities, networks, agriculture, trade, ceremony, and deep cultural continuity. But even scholarship has limits, because no excavation can fully recover a lived moment. No artifact can fully restore a voice, and no reconstruction can fully capture the feeling of standing inside a living Mississippian community as smoke rises from homes and children run through plazas beneath towering earthworks. Some things must be imagined carefully, respectfully. You look across time and see what remains, not ruins alone, but descendants, cultures that carried forward elements of Mississippian life into new forms, nations that preserved relationships with land, river, ceremony, and community long after the great mound centers ceased to dominate the landscape. Historians still debate how direct some connections remain, and how much change through migration and transformation. But the deeper truth is harder to dispute. The Mississippian world did not vanish into silence. It became part of something larger, something living, something still unfolding. The rivers continue to connect people. The land continues to shape life. And memory continues to move forward through generations in ways that are not always written, but are deeply felt. You imagine Cahokia at its height one final time. Monk's Mound rising above a vast city, plazas filled with thousands, canoes arriving from distant rivers, ceremonies unfolding beneath open skies. Then you see it shift, the city quieting over generations, communities dispersing, new centers rising elsewhere, not an ending, a transformation. That is what civilizations often are, not static monuments, but living systems that change their form over time. As dawn approaches, the first light returns to the river valley. Mist lifts gently from the water. Birds call from distant trees. A new day begins, just as it has for thousands of years. And within that dawn, the Mississippian legacy remains present. In the earthworks that still shape the land, in the rivers that still guide movement, in the traditions that still echo through descendant communities, and in the enduring human truth that no civilization exists only in its past. It lives in what continues. You take one final look across the landscape where history, memory, and present life meet. Then the story softens, like firelight fading at the edge of sleep, and what remains is not an ending, but a continuity carried forward. Blessings to you and your family.